Someone says BC Mano. Yes, that's his name. BC, shameless plug. His name is BC Mano. BC. I mean, see if I say YouTube, I would have played that song, but YouTube will flag it, will flag all this copyright, whatever. But it's beautiful. You should listen to it. It's called Odaju. How that one enter politics, we'll go talk about that later. But it's Odaju. Yeah, there are two songs I discovered yesterday. And I saw some people today were like, these songs have been popular for a while. I was like, I mean, it's better late than never, I guess. So BC Mano, that's his name, and the song is Odaju, and the other one is Anu, something like that. Yeah, Anuni. I played one earlier today. Maybe I'm going to play it again tomorrow on TikTok. Tomorrow is Friday, right? Yeah, that'll be the final session for the week. All right, YouTube has a way of stopping us from enjoying music. Can you imagine? Marshall. Okay, let's get back on to our topic. If you're on YouTube, sorry that happened. It was due to some technical stuff, but I'm glad you're back. So we're talking about the fake Abuja agency scandal involving the person, Adeni Matthew Adeyemi, and we had listened to a recording earlier, and please pardon me, particularly those on TikTok and Twitter. We're going to play it again because people are going to find that video on YouTube. You might even go back to it. You want to be able to find the connection. All right, so please allow me just a bit of it, and I'm going to read the rest. Okay, take a listen to this, please. By the way, the context is that we have a man who is parading himself as the DG of an agency of government, and even has a space in the federal secretariat in Abuja. You know, and like I said earlier, all these things will probably not mean so much, to be honest, right? Maybe the person is just a scam artist, a con artist, just trying to deceive people. The one that I cannot explain, and I'm waiting to see how the presidency will explain to the world, is how 1.3 billion take enter budget, and the person we then put in there a fake agency. That's the one I don't know about, but we'll see if they can explain to us. Let's take a listen to Arise News report on this particular matter. Please take a listen.
The agency's alleged Director General, Prince Adeni Adeyemi, is described as an impostor who forged his appointment letter. According to the presidency's statement, Adeyemi operated out of an office at the Federal Secretariat Complex in Abuja for over a year, hosting meetings with foreigners and Nigerian officials, and even attempted to obtain U.S. visas for his staff through a note verbal from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Chief of Staff to the President, Femi Bajiabiamila, alerted the DSS and the police in October 2025 about the fictitious agency, and Adeyemi was arrested at his secretariat office on October 27th. The police raided both his office and his home in Suleja, discovering 34 bank accounts, 9 opened in the names of his fictitious agencies, and alleged evidence that he fraudulently opened a CBN account by deceiving the Office of the Accountant General. Adeyemi was released on bail and now faces an 8-count charge, including criminal forgery and impersonation, and is due in court on July 27th. Well, here is a video showing Adeyemi promoting the fake agency.
The vision driving the work of Presidential Economic Advisory Council and the Presidential Foreign Intervention Promotion Council. This demand bold ideas, bolder actions, and strong collaboration and decisive change. The council was created to serve a simple but powerful purpose, that is to support the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu effort. Her mandate is clear. We aim to shape policies that not only stimulate growth, attract both foreign and local investment. Being privileged to serve as the Director General Master to me personally, because I know what is I have seen the challenges and the potential in this country. I believe in what this council stands for. In the short time since my appointment, we have laid the foundation for impact, streamlining investor support systems, improving advisory structures, and aligning national priorities with practical solutions. Our work is ongoing and we have a long-term vision, but the goal is simple: to build an inclusive, stable economy where opportunity is accessible to everyone. To the citizens, the entrepreneurs, and the partners, we are working for you and with you to move Nigeria forward. God bless Nigeria.
Well, this story has generated significant reactions online. After Adeyemi was arrested and released on bail, he alleged that Femi Gbajabiamila collected 400 million naira by proxy to secure him the appointment, with a 200 million naira balance still outstanding. But Adeyemi's claim directly contradicted his earlier statement to the police, where he stated that one Dolapo Babatunde Tanimola, who died in a fire incident on October 22nd, just 5 days before his arrest, was the person who assisted him in procuring the fake appointment letter. The presidency has described Adeyemi as a serial fraudster, pointing out that in 2016, he falsely paraded himself as an ambassador of the World Youth Organization until the United Nations denied its existence. Now, here are the 3 questions Nigerians are asking online. How did a fake agency secure an office space at the Federal Secretariat, attract foreign diplomats, and get 1.3 billion naira into the presidency's own budget? And I'll take Kalu Aja's tweet.
All right, so whatever question she's asking is the exact same questions I'm asking as well. And we're attempting to find the answers by reading the statement by Mr. Abayo Onuga, who is the Special Advisor, Information and Strategy to President Tinubu. And he started by saying the matter of Adeyemi Matthew and the fictitious Presidential Economic Advisory Council says we are aware of the public interest in the matter of a man called Adeyemi Matthew, who has been parading himself as the Director General of the fictitious Presidential Foreign Intervention Promotion Council, Presidential Economic Advisory Council. The following complaints from officials of the Nigerian Investment Promotion Council that another government agency appeared to be functioning at cross purposes with it. The Chief of Staff to the President, Mr. Femi Gbajabiamila, was the one who actually initiated this entire thing from the very beginning. So that actually makes a lot of sense, right? But doesn't answer the question that we still have. But let's go back to the things that he said back in October. I'm talking about the Office of Chief of Staff, Femi Gbajabiamila. So in the letter he wrote to the DSS and the police, it says the attention of this office has been drawn to the activities of certain individuals and groups engaged in the forgery of appointment letters and so on and so forth. And it says the aforementioned entity under the leadership of one Prince Adeyemi Matthew as Director General is said to have an office at the Federal Secretariat Complex, Phase 3, second floor. Also, they have been parading themselves as legitimate government agency and so on and so forth. They've been hosting meetings with both foreigners and Nigerian citizens. And before YouTube went out earlier, I said that there are images of the same person with the Deputy Speaker, Honorable Kalu. There are pictures, even with the EFCC chairman. Like, he's just taking pictures of everybody. And I don't even know why people like sharing pictures of things like that. Meanwhile, you know that you're running a fake, you're still doing video and waiting on. It is weird. So he says that he's been having meetings with foreigners and Nigerian citizens, and he went as far as to request a note verbal from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to the United States of America to facilitate visas for some of their staff. And I don't read everything. The point is just that the Chief of Staff to the President put this out there in October, and the person was eventually arrested. However, something else came up in November, where the Chief of Staff responded to the Office of the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, the OSGF, flatly denying Adeyemi and his spurious Presidential Foreign Investment Promotion Council is unknown to any office, nor do we have any dealings with the said council. And so that was in November. And then the police searched the office. You heard the lady talk about it. The police searched this office And then they also discovered 34 bank accounts with 9 opened in the names. But here's the crazy part again. The police also found that Adeyemi used fake documents to create a CBN account. He created, sorry, let me read it the way they wrote it. The police found that Adeyemi, using the fake documents he created, fraudulently opened a CBN account. How? By using fake documents. Oh boy, it looks like there's some collusion, right, somewhere in there. Like, you can't do all these things without having people supporting in government. There's no way. This is too much. Anyway, let's read the latter part of the statement. Bayonga went on to say that based on their investigations, the police filed an 8-count charge at the Federal High Court in Abuja against Adeyemi and 2 of his accomplices on November 27, 2025. He's due in court on July 27. Adeyemi was on police bail when he recently claimed that the chief of staff had appointed he of the fictitious agency. This claim contradicted his statement to the police in November last year. His new claim prompted the chief of staff on June 8 to issue a disclaimer consistent with earlier advisories that the man called Adeyemi is an imposter. I mean, other things are there, but we don't have all the time in the world. Again, I'm just asking the same question. When it's time for you to come up, to share your thoughts, please enlighten me and perhaps others like me who may be listening. How do you have a budgetary allocation earmarked for an agency that doesn't exist? And how do you think that would happen without the knowledge of certain individuals within the presidency? These are questions that I hope, I mean, Mr. Bayo wrote very fantastic stuff, but he did not answer those questions. All right, so he just went around it, I guess. I'm looking at the video here where the man actually convened a presidential promotion council. He hosted pre-war investment summit dinner in Abuja with diplomats, politicians, and the guy is bold.
So this is very special.
It's very bold. It's very bold. But it's bad when people are boldly doing terrible things like this. Anyway, still in Abuja, but away from... One second, before we go, let me see if there's anything in the comment section. Good evening, John Vaughn. Your mind says nothing will happen in Nigeria. That will surprise me anymore. The alleged impostor is not working alone. I agree with you. Geeky on TikTok says there's definitely an insider that's next level. Okay, let me put the punctuation mark. There's definitely an insider that's next level confidence. I mean, the guy is on another level. There are definitely people he's working with, and that money they've got out, they may also need to explain to people. And let me say this, for the first time, I think the opposition has a chance to actually, put the feet of the government to the fire. If they know how to do what they're supposed to do, not all these nuisance they're constituting, they need to drill down on this matter and get the government to explain how this happened and why we should be, all right. But again, I'm not holding my breath for this so-called opposition party. Some of them are just interesting people. Anyway, we'll get to them later. Something interesting happened in ADC earlier. We'll read that much later. But let's just do something in FCT before we go. There was a commissioning of roads in Gadua district in Abuja. And the Senate President, Senator Godswill Akpabio, was there to help commission the roads. And he was, of course, the guest of the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike. And this is what Senator Akpabio had to say at the commissioning of the roads. Take a listen, please. Now, waiting this. Okay.
Your Excellency, the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Bola Ahmed Tinubu GCFR, who graciously directed that I represent him in this particular commissioning. My dear brothers, distinguished senators of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I've seen so many of them. Well, very prominent is Senator Izunaso, Senator Ten Williams, Senator Olagamwogu, whom I understand just won election from PDP. I didn't know that there was still PDP. I'm sure it's somewhere, and so many other distinguished senators, members of the working committee of the people of the APC. We can stop confusing us. If a party has died, allow it to die. So members of the working committee.
So in that video, I mean, the reason I played it was because of the statement that the senator made, the Senate president, when he said that Wike should stop confusing them. If the party has died, let it die. Wike is playing some serious political games, and I think it's working. It's not necessarily with the ruling party, but overseas or whatever is happening in PDP, is that the man does deliver, particularly as FCT minister. And interestingly, I'd been a minister under Jonathan before he became governor in Rivers State. And he did well at the time, but not like this. This one is unprecedented. And it's important to acknowledge it even, I mean, that's why I said I don't belong to a party, so it makes it easy for me to acknowledge good things, regardless of who's doing it. So, good stuff from the FCT minister. Yes, we can let me very quickly, but this time we're still in Abuja, but we're looking at an interview that was conducted on Channels TV featuring the Minister of Youth, Ayodele Olawande, and we talked about NYSC reforms some days ago, right? Apparently, not only are they changing the structure and the leadership being civilian rather than military, but now they're also changing the uniforms. It's quite interesting. And something about, moving from Khaki to Adire, that would be nice. That's something that they're talking about. I'd like you to listen to the minister have this conversation on Channels TV. Let's start with this one about Adire. Take a listen.
Jobs for the young people.
It's an issue. Give me a second, please. By the way, if you don't know, I'm humming a song I heard yesterday. You should go and look for it. Kilo Koreano. Odaju by BC Mano. Brilliant guy. Fantastic songwriting. And wonderful voice as well. Having said that, back to politics. Take a listen to this. Kilo Shele. I might be no. We'll fix it.
So it's not even about the uniform. It's not even about the uniform. It's not even about the this thing. It's not even about that. It's about we have 70% of Nigerians that are young people. For the past 2-3 years now, going to 3 years, university has been running without strike. And that's the question.
Yeah, Minister, we have 30 seconds more. So 2 questions you can answer in 30 seconds. When are we expecting this amendment to take place? So when is it kickstarting? And I hope the uniforms will be produced in Nigeria.
No, that is Ankara Self. Or what was it? What was the name of this? That's why we're touching the economy. What's the name of Adire? If is Adire, so Adire is being produced in Nigeria. We have it in Ogun, we have in Kwara, we have textile industry. Let's put our money back into the country.
Yes, I was asking when are we expecting this reform to kick this year, next year?
No, it's not. There's nothing like this year. It's a process. We have been on the process. We are looking at those ones that we can implement without the heart. We are looking at those ones that will wait for the heart, and we are pushing. And and that is why it's good to be a youth minister as a youth. So it's for me to go and prostrate to the National Assembly, prostrate to them, and tell them that, see, this is not something. It's something that you should treat like a state police. It's something that you should treat like other things, so that you can put it. And we have a listening president. We have a president that listens to things. If you can be able to convince him better and how to see his own view about the economy. So we have that president that talks to us and listens to us. As for yesterday, I was still with him. And it's an engagement. And he's also ready to also help us. It's not going to be easy. No reform is going to be easy. Right. But it's a process that we need to start from somewhere.
All right. So in that same interview, he had other things to say. For instance, he talked about how we need to go back to the era where people graduated from school and companies want to give them jobs and things like that. Take a listen again to the Minister of Youth.
I think we should have enough thinking beyond the ceremonial, beyond just talking, beyond people saying that they are serving their father's land, and you just go to camp, you come out of camp, and nothing happens after 1 year. You still have people that are not eligible for the capital market, for the job market. We are producing a huge numbers of young people that cannot even provide for themselves after the NYSC. Produce people that can go to their various areas of study, get a prerequisite skills, not really training. Let's go back to the era whereby they tell us a story that people graduated from school. After graduating from school, you have companies, you have private sector drivens and all that come to their schools and NYSC to pick them because they've invested in them, because they've trained them, because they knew that this is our product. So they were able to get job. Even those that are not able to get job, they were able to get skilled and upskilled. Even for those that have been skilled, it's to have an environment that is centralized from just mobilization, to have a scheme that it's productive and we can easily send out to have something to do for individual self and also the community and even the economy, so that the economy can thrive and also bring a large numbers of young people to the limelight, that it is not only about serving your father's land, it is about being productive for yourself and for the country.
Right, that was the Minister of Youth, Ayo Olawande. I don't know if you get his name correctly. Ayodele Olawande, I was right. That was the Minister of Youth, and good luck to them. I hope they get the act passed, and I hope they're able to do what they plan to do in even before the act itself is passed, right, in reforming National Youth Service Corps. While the federal government is doing that, while that Minister of Youth is doing that, the Minister of Works also talked about what we've been discussing for some days now, the idea of roads not being built, being terrible. Of course, that was Peter Obi essentially talking about how the roads are bad, even when the road is complaining about it's literally being reconstructed. So here's the message that David Umai, sent to Peter Obi. Take a listen to this.
But the bad news is that if you go through that road now, you will see a couple of failures on the road. And so the reinforced concrete technology of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu is quite innovative. And I feel so sad, when my brother, the former governor of Anambra State, who should know what administration is, what governance is. I saw in social media where he got a point. So when did governance reduce to comedy? And so he was attacking my integrity and personality. And I'm always ready, for a debate. I'm always ready to disaggregate the unit cost of, concrete, and to debate with him. And so I feel so sad Because governance is the responsibility of everybody. The president is not here today, but I have to be the president by performing the job that the president has assigned to me. So governance is the job of everybody. Look at our infrastructure being destroyed. Look at vehicles parking on our roads. Must the president go there and stand there? So we take responsibility. If anything goes wrong in Ministry of Works, I take responsibility, not the president. And so I want to commend the president very highly. And I want to thank the fashioner chairman of, ADC, my namesake, His Excellency David Mark. He was bold to say, oh, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has done very well in infrastructure. He was bold to say that. But my brother, Governor Wike, has replied to him because he damaged his sincerity by saying, oh, is it true that we chop? The infrastructure roads is the GDP that grows every other GDP. When a road is cut, it's like the person is in prison. Because when you cannot go from one point to the other, then you are in prison. But look at what the president is doing. When one distance to the other, when Nasarawa is very close to Ebonyi, when Ebonyi is very close to Cross River, when Cross River is close to Sokoto, then that is the GDP that we are looking at. And
yes, all right. That was the Minister of Works, Engineer David Umahi. And yesterday we also mentioned how, the president has approved 27 road projects worth over 3.9 trillion naira across different parts of Nigeria. So that's good. Again, David Umahi was responding to the statement made by Peter Obi. And just as he was, trying to correct him on the matter of roads, Peter Obi decided to get back on social media. By the way, he mentioned comedy. I don't know if he was doing comedy. I thought he was being a presidential aspirant, but it is well. Anyway, he was back on his turf, which is social media. And this time, he's talking about how he would create 10,000 primary health centers across Nigeria. Sometimes this guy speaks. I mean, this man don't be like disrespect. Sometimes he talk, you go to wonder, say, take a listen to it in talk. Then you can decide if it makes sense. I mean, I don't think it makes sense, but again, that's just me. You may have a different perspective. All right. So please take a listen to this.
It's not really decided it's important to come to Waru-Wazobia. A settlement that is not really known by most Abuja citizens. Watch this.
Well, you could see this place. So you could see where governance is needed. Governance is not needed in urban areas. It's needed in rural areas where we have a critical need to show that government exists and care for our citizens' welfare is in rural areas. Because it's in rural areas like this place, you wouldn't believe that this place is part of Abuja. This is the place you need education. This is the place you need primary health care and everything. And I'm here to observe it myself and encourage the citizens on the reason why they should participate in the electoral process by ensuring that those who are elected are people who have the competence and the capacity to be able to provide all those things. So when you see me say, I'm going to make sure that we are going to have a proper health care in our 8,800 and something watts. I'm going in and seeing them. So we should be able to have 10,000 functional primary health care, which will cover all the wards in Nigeria within a period of time. So that A pregnant mother will not be able to be careful. A child will not be able to be careful. With that, we'll be tackling maternal health issue where we have a problem today, tackling infant mortality issue where we have a problem today. That's why I'm here.
So when they ask you for manifesto and you say it doesn't matter, nah, so you go to see them. I mean, it's not like there's something wrong with the federal government. Let's assume he's the president, which he will never become. It's not like it's wrong for the federal government to, by the way, in case you are wondering why he's talking like this, he's supposed to be objective. I'm objectively against Peter Obi. Let me make it very clear. So in case you are wondering, we're supposed to do as if you don't. I don't like his politics. I don't like the way he moves. He talks as if he's talking to, like, the rest of us listening to, don't have sense. Like, he just says things. In my part of the country, many of the local governments already have healthcare centers, right? The question is, okay, so number one, let's even begin with this. Number one, as governor, how many health centers did Peter Obi build while he was governor of Anambra State? Number two, is it time for campaign? Has it started, like this campaign, are we in campaign season, essentially, where you are telling people to vote right because you will build 10,000 kidney? So my question is, when you were governor, how many did you build? He talks like he has never been in power before. When Mimiko was governor of Ondo State, was it not the same period that he was governor of Anambra? We know Adire, Mother and Child Hospital in Ondo State. When people, even from the east, from the southeast, I mean, again, Nigerians, everybody can move anywhere, took advantage of what was happening in Ondo State. We didn't hear things like that happening in Anambra State. It's funny how people get the chance to do something. You know, Jesus said, whoever is faithful in little is faithful in much. You know, we didn't see anything. Now that you're not telling us you're going to do it and give us 10,000. I think that even though it makes sense that, you know, the healthcare delivery system in Nigeria is supported by all tiers of government, so it's more concurrent than exclusive to any one of them, I would assume, and rightly so, if I do say so myself, that the focus of the presidency of federal government will most likely be tertiary rather than primary healthcare delivery. Why? Because at the point in Nigeria, we have to begin to ask ourselves this question: what is the job and duty of local government? What exactly do they exist for? You have 774 local governments. Why are you, as the president, and I'm not saying it is wrong, it's just a question I'm asking. There's nothing wrong with the federal government intervening, creating hospitals, and all of those things. But we have a structural problem in this country. Why is it that everything must come from the top? I'm not shouting competence. Everything is so centralized. Everything is like Abuja has to create the road that you walk. I mean, people, if this person can talk about primary health care, right? Primary health care is just talking about all those cottage-like, you know, health centers across the place. If you can do that, you might as well begin to think of fixing the road on every street in Nigeria, in every ward. Some of these things sound nice, you know, probably make some people happy, but it doesn't really. It's not the best way to run the country, if you get what I mean. It's not the best way to. If you ever thought he was president, it's the work of the FCT minister, at least. But if you really want to talk about it, you should be talking to Amak or Buhari. These are area councils in Abuja. That's their job. But pata, even if you don't want to say go to the lowest kidney, you go to the minister of FCT. Why would the president be going to say want to have kidney, want to have primary care centers in every ward in Nigeria? That sounds like a very good idea, but it doesn't really make so much sense, because it's as though you have condemned the local government to irrelevance. They just collect, I don't know if they even collect money these days, they just collect money and chop it. Anyway, that was Peter Obi talking as usual. I mean, it's, when it comes to basic healthcare, you expect there to be local government. And I think That's what the structure, that's what we should be talking about in Nigeria, so that the federal government can focus on things that really, things that the local government cannot handle. So let's even assume that, I mean, think about it. Let's assume that the local government gets the allocation directly from FAC, like from RMAFC. Is there not supposed to be a budget for health in the local government? If there is, why on earth would the president be saying that he wants to? Sorry, TikTok is, please, if you're on TikTok, please power tap. Thank you. I think you get my point, right? I just don't think. And then he said he has going around. I don't know. I have a report here this is from severemalaria.org that talked about how local governments are supposed to build infrastructure and fund and maintain, small primary healthcare centers across Nigeria, and they should be empowered. That's my opinion. Even though it will not be wrong, please, I'm not saying it is wrong for federal government to intervene or to do stuff, but this shayagbangba to say every problem in Nigeria, I would fix it as president. It's not the same man that told us it's going to give us 10,000 megawatts, even when we already have 13,500. And in some cases up to 15,000 megawatts. By the way, just to be clear, Nigeria generates up to 15,000 megawatts. It's just the problem we have in this country, which is the federal government needs to really do something about it, is transmission. The facilities, the equipment are moribund. The entire system needs to be overhauled. I hope they do something about it. But no, Peter Obi is going to come and generate what's already been generated. Very wise. Okay. By the way, I want to rush through the news, bring people up, and then I'll go. If we have time, I'll bring people up. If not, I'll just go into the topic of today, and then I'll bring people up much later. The topic of today is about Yoruba people in the north. We're going to be reading a document that I find very, very important to our conversation. But before we do that, a few more news items. This is from Channels Television, and it's news about something that happened in Ebonyi State. Ebonyi repatriates 28 trafficked children, announces rehabilitation plans. At least 28 allegedly, At least 28 children allegedly trafficked for child labor to Otolo, Nnewi North Local Government area of Anambra State, have been repatriated by the Ebonyi State government. The repatriation was carried out in collaboration with the Office of the Governor's wife, Mrs. Uzomaka Nwifiru. The development was disclosed in a press statement released on Wednesday night by the Commissioner for Women Affairs, Mrs. Felicia Wakboma, who confirmed that the children were currently under the ministry's care. To ensure their full recovery, the Ministry of Women Affairs, backed by the state government and the Office of the Governor's wife, will oversee a comprehensive rehabilitation program. I'm just going to go straight to what she said. She said, we remain resolute in ensuring that every Ebonyi child grows up in safety, dignity, and hope. We therefore call on members of the public to remain vigilant and partner with the government by promptly reporting cases of child trafficking, abuse, exploitation, and any form of violence against women and children. So I'm actually happy that the government of my state did that for the children who were trafficked to a neighboring state. So that's good news. All right, there's something I found on TVC News I want to quickly share with you. Ibo Jinadu says transmission is overdue for decentralization. I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%. But let's just quickly listen to BTO. That's Babajide Otitoloju. And I think this is quite interesting. Babajide Kolade Otitoloju, BKO. Take a listen, please.
For me, I want Peter Obi to be on the ballot. I don't want a situation in which Peter Obi loses the opportunity to contest and probably build on the momentum that he gained in 2023. Nobody thought he would do that well, but he did well. So let him try his chance again. After all, We've seen people like Atiku Abubakar contest again and again and again. It's a perennial contestant. It's a perennial litigant. So let Peter Obi get his chance. I don't want to see anything that will stop him from being on the ballot. God sees my heart. That's not what I want to see. So I'm happy that they decided to appeal. We'll see what happens at the end of the day.
At the end of the day.
I mean, this is very important considering what's happening with NDC at the moment. We know about the Lokoja judgment, and we don't know if NDC should run, but BKO threw some jabs at Atiku Abubakar and he did not even do anything. The man was just sitting down, just stray bullet. Anyway, something from Atiku Abubakar before we go back to NDC. Atiku Abubakar has appointed Kenneth Okonkwo, Peter Obi's friend and brother. He has appointed him as his spokesperson for 2027 election. I'm going to read this from the cable. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has appointed Kenneth Okonkwo, a Nollywood actor and politician, as his spokesperson for the 2027 presidential election campaign. A snapshot of the appointment letter shared by Okonkwo on his X page on Thursday said the appointment followed Atiku's emergence. Oh dear, there might be no. We'll read this thing. All right. A snapshot of the appointment letter shared by Okonkwo on his X page on Thursday said the appointment followed Atiku's emergence as the presidential candidate of the African Democratic Congress, ADC, for the general election. And so he writes here, I am pleased to offer you an appointment. That's the letter. I am pleased to offer you an appointment as my spokesperson for the 2027 general elections in Nigeria. General elections in Nigeria. There shall be fireworks. Do they see other 5 billion lawsuits from Peter Obi against Okonkwo? Or are they still... Anyway, let's just read. The letter said the appointment reflected Atiku's confidence in Okonkwo's competence, public communication skills, integrity, political judgment, and ability to represent the public positions of the ex-vice president in a professional and responsible manner. While congratulating you on this appointment, I look forward to your valuable contribution to the campaign and to the advancement of democratic engagement in Nigeria. That's the letter of appointment that Kenneth Okonkwo got from Atiku Abubakar. Before I go on to other matters, I just want to listen to Kenneth Okonkwo I want us to listen to him together on some of the things that he has said. In the past. Let us begin with this.
Anybody who is voting for NDC and P2B is voting for criminality. And I will prove it with facts. I will call names. There is one man called Obunike Ohebu, the House of Representatives aspirant, Newi North and Newi South, and Ekusigo local government from Anambra State. He sent an SOS to me. And he said that P2B is now the head of the criminality, that they were scammed in NDC. And he said, also went back to his people and made sure that every constituency produced one candidate so that they will not be scammed. But P2B told them that all of them, the aspirants, should go into the field and that they thought they were going to have primaries. Remember, Sereka Dixon came out and said, once you pay...
Sorry, this one is not the one about Atiku. This is the clip where he mentioned Atiku in passing. I'll play another one much later. Let's do this one first, and then we'll go to the other one. Take a listen to this.
And now you say NDC has zoned to the south. Recall that NDC, they are mere renegades from ADC. And the reason they went there is because they are scared of participating.
Is it fair to refer to those who are who legitimately, who constitutionally decided to pitch their tent in with a certain group? That the Constitution guaranteed them the freedom of alliances, of grouping, of membership, of association. Why would you call them a renegade? Who exactly is a renegade to you based on their action in that party?
Okay. And maybe I was even too lenient. Maybe let me say they are political con men.
Who exactly are you talking about?
Okay, let's look at it this way. They came into the coalition.
Who are they?
On their own.
Who are they?
I am talking about P2B and Kwakwanso. They came into the coalition on their own. And they said coalition is the best and the only method to send Tinubu packing, by their own words. And on their own, without any reason, they left for NDC. Is that not being a con man?
Don't they have the right to change their minds? Don't you change your mind as a human being?
Very good.
So is it a crime now to change one's mind? If you see that your association...
Apparently, he's been doing this work, speaking up for, representing Atiku's interest in conversations that have to do with politics, because of course he's still in ADC, and I'm happy for him. However, there are some clips that have surfaced online, right, of Kenneth Okonkwo saying something totally different from what I'm sure he's going to be saying now that he is the representative or the spokesman for Atiku Abubakar. Take a listen to some of these clips, channels, and then arise. Take a listen to this one.
Atiku Abubakar is a man that has propensity for corruption, tendency to disloyalty, inability to say and speak the truth at all times. So he's a man who has propensity for poor judgment, belief and reliance in matter about, lack of transparency, a man who trusts in money to buy his way out in all situations, a man who has the readiness to sacrifice morality, integrity, propriety, truth, national interest for self and selfish interest. We are seeing it manifesting. It gives me goose pimples that Atiku has the national award in corrupting the generation before him and corrupting the generation after him. He said in that tape, I have advised Obasanjo against open corruption, meaning Atiku has been operating coded corruption. Who has been operating coded corruption. Sacrifice.
It's politics, I guess. Another one.
President who cannot even come for a national debate because he's impaired in his reasoning and he has lost his memory, his abilities, his experiences. He has lost all of them. And I'm talking specifically about Bola Tinubu, who is suffering from dementia and amnesia. It's dangerous to bring such a person on the position of leadership. And I am talking about Atiku Abubakar, who is now an octogenarian, who cannot climb staircase. And that is why we are saying that P2B is the only option, not just an alternative option. When you talk about corruption, I've talked about the capacity, the competence, and then the character. P2B, I can tell you one thing. One of his aides met me when they were talking about corruption. He said, I am the one who took the parcel of land to His Excellency P2B. I personally. And I was shocked when he replied. And he said it was not to corrupt him. It was his entitlement. Just like in Abuja, everybody is entitled to a plot of land. As a governor, he's entitled pension, plot of land. But he rejected all of them in order to prove to the world that he came to serve, not for what he will receive, but what he will give. So he's going to tackle corruption. Why? He's going to reduce cost of governance. He's going to ensure the entrenchment of rule of law. He's going to establish an honest and efficient civil service. He is going to live by example. So the structure of corruption. What did you hear about Obasanjo when he talked about Atiku?
He said this is a man that has propensity to corruption, tendency to disloyalty. He's a man that is unable to say and stick to the truth at all times. He's a man that has poor judgment, a man that lacks transparency, a man who believes in man about, a man who
Mr. Koko,
believes in money to pay his way out in all the things he's doing. He has readiness to compromise morality, integrity, propriety, truth, national interest for self and selfish interest. Corruption personified. He has corrupted the older generation. He advised Obasanjo against corruption, but encouraged
Kenneth, let's ask the question so that we can move
he
very quickly.
He has infected the next generation with special purpose vehicle of corruption.
Two lessons from here. You know, those of us who are always shouting politicians are very funny human beings. See the passion with which he was supporting Peter Obi and condemning Atiku. That same passion now is using to support Atiku and condemn Peter Obi. And those of you who destroyed relationships because of these politicians, well done. I mean, people are saying there's a possibility that NDC works with Atiku, with ADC, because right now we are not sure of where the party stands, right? There is a court judgment that's, you know, saying they should go back to what they were before the earlier court judgment in 2025, right? And all of this because of logo. And I want to quickly play two clips from the interview that Seriake Dixon had with Shewa Kimbaloyi on Channels TV, and talking about the deregistration of their party, and then another one that also alludes to the possibility of working with Atiku. Take a listen to this one.
For 5 years, I'm saying that INEC is at liberty to allow another party to use that symbol. So, I mean, symbols are not reasons why you deregister a political party. They claim you copied their symbol. No, and that's why they are fighting. So Mahatma Gandhi copied it. And NEPU copied it from them. Mahatma Gandhi did not register it in Nigeria. No. I'm telling you that even before them, NEPU in the 40s was using this as Nasara. Listen to me. What people are trying to do is to look for flimsy reasons to truncate the political opposition, destabilize and weaken and scatter the political opposition, to weaken the political opposition, which is why it is worrisome. With ADC, it was a certain Gombe nephew who was there at the day they were holding a meeting to formally appoint the NEC, to formally appoint David Mark and the other leaders. I can't speak much for that, but all Nigerians are aware. And now, for a party that is now growing, that will work so hard and presenting credible, dynamic political leaders, probably one of the most charismatic set of leaders, converging now in the NDC. We know, we're not naive to know that that will not cause concerns in some quarters. But we want to say that, look, they should push this with care. All of us as leaders have a duty to nurture and protect our nation's democracy. Okay? We know where we are coming from.
Is this a plan to not to allow the NDC to be on the ballot?
Well, that will not succeed.
And then here's the other one where they talked about working with other politicians. Take a listen to this one.
When campaigns begin, every Nigerian will see clearly.
But will you align forces with the likes of Atiku?
Listen to me. Listen to me. As an opposition leader, party space, but it's not for me or anyone to preempt. Okay? And we hope that whatever discussions will lead to the NDC candidate being backed, because we know the value of the candidates we are putting forward. Okay? We are not claiming superiority. We are not claiming anyone is not listening.
So you are open to work with other political parties?
Every party, every group.
You want to form a coalition? Is it possible?
We will, after the nomination processes have ended, so we'll get to another phase. Okay? Yeah. Of discussing. Yeah. Whether it will agree, I don't know, or we'll try. Where it will lead to, I don't know, but all those are options that are open.
All right, so apparently there is that possibility. We'll see how that works out. But they mentioned AGC in the earlier report we read, and something interesting is happening in that party. The cable reports, court affirms Mark-led AGC leadership finds the Abijide Council 20 million naira. The Federal High Court in Abuja has affirmed the David Mark-led leadership of the African Democratic Congress, ADC. According to NAN, Musa Liman, the presiding judge, on Thursday, dismissed the suit filed by Leke Abejide, a member of the House of Representatives. The suit was filed to challenge the legality of the emergence of Mark and Rauf Aregbesola as ADC National Chairman and National Secretary, respectively. Defendants in the case are Mark Aregbesola and the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, the ADC, and Ralph Nwosu, former National Chairman of the party. Abejide sought an order declaring Nwosu's handover of ADC leadership to Mark Aregbesola on July 2, 2025 at Shehu Musaya Rajo, Abuja, as illegal, unlawful, null, and void. But the government has said no. They will find him 20 million. So I think they are good. That's the David Mark led ADC. But good news for Nigerians who are preparing to vote in the next year's election. This is something from INEC. I want to take a listen to the DG of that electoral body. All right, please take a listen to this.
Let me also say that under the new Electoral Act 2026, they have introduced the use of what we call downloadable PVCs. For PVCs, and this is added to that, we need a lot of education. So downloadable, it's not every PVC that are downloadable. You must have gotten your PVC before, and you must, maybe the PVC is lost, the PVC is defaced, or some other, you cannot read your the number that is there. But the voter must go and complain. It's not automatic. You must complain, and the complaint must be 90 days before the election. So that will now enable us to print replacement card. And the provision is flexible, that the moment you complain, you should be able to print your downloadable PVC which you can use. If you have not collected your PVC, that service may not be available. Now, we have worked on that technology that will make downloadable PVC to commence during the Osun State governorship election in August this year. That is next month.
All right, so the INEC, they are introducing downloadable permanent voters card. And the man has mentioned, the category of people who can do that, particularly before the coming election. We're wrapping up the news now, but I want to just read a few more things before we go. Some policy decisions and also warning from former President Obasanjo. But let me start with this thing on education, right? And then we'll discuss some things about oil in Southwest. The federal government is set to phase out GSS and SSS that's what
keep basic education programs together access to quality education, promoting digital and innovative learning, providing education opportunities for adults and children, and other vulnerable learners to strengthen, most importantly, the delivery of inclusive basic education nationwide, so no child is left behind.
According to the federal government, over 20 million students do not progress from GSS to SS classes to complete secondary education. The Education Minister announces a plan to address the issue.
Every day, a completed school remains locked, represent lost opportunities for thousands of Nigerian children. Every abandoned school project represents resources that are not yielding their intended education value.
All right, I'm going to move very quickly to other reports before we move away from the news. Good news. Oil exploration advances on Eba Island in Ogun State. The crude oil discovered in Eba, Ogun State has been confirmed as one of the world's most premium crude grades. It is of the finest quality. Active exploration is now underway on Eba Island following the grant of frontier exploration status to Ogun State by the federal government through the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources. And according to this report from letter by Jack, it says the key milestones have been achieved so far: completion of the environmental impact assessment, completion of bathymetric, topographical, and geotechnical surveys, and also receipt of statutory approvals secured from NUPRC and the Federal Ministry of Environment. Here's a clip from the site of the exploration. Take a listen to this. This is from Eba Island in Ogun State, where exploration has already begun. Take a listen.
By one of the communities in Ogun State where oil has been discovered. As you can see, site preparation is ongoing, which will now pave way for proper drilling. The oil is arguably the best you can get in Nigeria, in sub-Saharan Africa, in the whole world. So all the while we've been here, it's been very calm, and they are welcoming, they are accommodating. So this shows the eagerness towards the success of this very project, and that's quite commendable of them. Kudos to the Governor of Ogun State, His Excellency Prince Dapo Abiodun, for such visionary leadership, and more importantly, kudos to the Federal Government of Nigeria under the leadership of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu for such synergy with the state, which has brought such enviable progress and development. I know by the time we are done doing this, it will add tremendously to the development of the nation at large.
All right, that's from Eba Island, and it's such a beautiful news. And we also hope that, the companies that be drilling there will take a leave from the activities in the Niger Delta, and will not repeat the mistakes made there, whether in terms of environmental degradation or corporate social responsibility and things like that. But I'm happy that Ogun State has now joined the League of Oil Producing States. Still on oil, NNPC remits 4.86 trillion to Federation in 5 months despite profit dip. Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPC, on Wednesday announced that it remitted a cumulative 4.858 trillion naira to the Federation account as of the end of May 2026, representing a sharp 30.8% increase from the 3.714 trillion naira recorded a month earlier. Owa Nigeria, figures contained in the NNPC monthly report summary for May 2026 show that cumulative statutory payments to the Federation rose by 1.144 trillion naira between April and May, with profit after tax declining to 4 after tax declining to 4. And I'll read the last report and I'll bring some people up, take a short break, and then we'll come back to read that document about Yoruba people in the north. This is a statement from the former President Olusegun Obasanjo, and this is what he said: Nigeria must do everything to avoid another civil war. Why on earth would he say that? Thank you for asking. Let us read the report. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo says Nigeria cannot afford another civil war with the country still in the throes of the 1967 conflict. Obasanjo spoke on Wednesday in Abuja during the public presentation of a book on the Asaba massacre and related events written by Chuk Nduka Eze, chairman of the Asaba Memorial Trust and the Asaba Image Branding and Project Committee. He said, preventing a repeat of the tragedy, noting that some of the issues that led to the civil war still persist. Quote, what went wrong in the past is essential to preventing a repeat. We must do everything humanly possible to prevent its reoccurrence. Some of the things that led to the civil war are still with us. How long will this remain so? I was with a colleague when General Yakubu Gowon said that we would not survive a second civil war as a country. I believe we have fought one civil war too many already to say that we will have a second civil war. God forbid. We must understand what happened, condemn what should not have happened, and then for us to be able to say never again. What are we going to do to make that possible? And I'd like to play you a clip, this time from African Independent Television, where Obasanjo actually made this statement. Take a listen to this, please.
I must speak authoritatively on what transpired. History must serve as a guide for future generations. Obasanjo noted that the commander on the ground at the time was the late General Murtala Mohammed, adding that the important lesson for Nigerians today is to ensure that the nation never returns to the dark days of civil conflict.
I believe that we have fought one civil war too many already. So to say that we will have a second civil war, God forbid, and getting ourselves to know some of what happened and to say yes, condemn what happened that should not have happened, and then make sure that we do everything humanly possible to prevent reoccurrence.
Earlier, chairman of the Asaba Memorial Trust, Chuk Nduka Eze, presented the former president with documentary papers, video evidence, and published works of the October 1967 Asaba massacre. He said the presentation forms part of a national campaign for former national recognition of the massacre, describing it as a painful chapter in Nigeria's history that deserves official acknowledgement.
What is unique about the Asaba massacre is that there has been some major reluctance on the part of Nigeria as a unit to acknowledge that event, to apologize for it, to engage the community and discuss proper, responsible remedial steps.
Former President Olusegun Obasanjo highlighted some of the ugly after effects of what to be lawlessness, rape, among others, and cautions Nigerians to manage their diversity and be more united. Niyi Marayisa, AIT News, Abuja.
Anyway, so we've had a session here. We've had a number of sessions about the Asaba massacre here, and it was such a terrible period in Nigeria's history. The people who died, the people who were killed, and how everything went down. And I would rather speak on what Obasanjo said than what I'll take that again. I'd rather speak on what Obasanjo said than on what the writer of the book said. And that is that no matter what happens, we should not have another war in this country. And there are certain people who are fanning the embers of war. They want to have a repeat. My own prayer is just that, number one, it should not happen, but if it has to happen, let it happen where they come from, because they really want war. Maybe it's going to give them closure or whatever. But the other statesman knows exactly what he's talking about. There's nothing cool about wars. And you can talk about apologies and everything, but that's after the fact. It's better not to have it at all. Whether Nigeria should apologize, I don't know. I just think that Nigeria, of course, should acknowledge its history. And to acknowledge history means that you're going to talk about everything, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything that happened. Right? And when people start talking about it, I hope nobody will come around and cry. Because Nigeria's history is not one straightforward thing that makes some people, permanently one. And even the Asaba thing, to be fair, most of the blame goes to Nigerian government. Most of the blame for what happened. But there are certain events that precipitated it, and they also acted as catalyst for the terrible massacre. And if you want to discuss that massacre, you have to talk about those events as well. Not even just the events, but certain actions by certain characters and actors, right, in that particular theater, what became the theater of, I don't know if I can call it a theater of war. Those conversations should be had, and they will require that people actually grow thick skin, right? Because everybody, all right. But again, regardless, Nigeria needs to acknowledge what happened. I'm not a big fan of this thing about. Let me not talk about that thing, because it's something painful to people from Asaba. So not today. Maybe another time when we're making the topic, I'll be able to actually explain how I arrived at that conclusion. So that doesn't just become statements in passing. All right. So I'm going to bring some people up now, and then we'll come back and read the document I mentioned earlier. So let's have, who is this? Bumblebee. Bumblebee, do you like honey? Good evening, Bumblebee. Please go on.
Oh,
I cannot hear you. Hey.
Hello, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
1 second.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, it's better now.
Okay. Equito.
Ekole. Shewa.
So let me start by saying thank God for the oil exploration going on in Ogun State. Like I said before, Ondo has oil, Lagos has oil, Ogun has oil. So it's a given. They're on that same axis, that entire basin, the Dahomey Basin. So and it's a very oil-rich area, except they are unwilling to do the exploration. Second of all, so Kenneth Okonkwo, Oloma fi jíjẹ àti mímu wá síbi tó le. On lọ́rọ̀ Kenneth Okonkwo. He's a family man that is doing a very difficult job just to put food on the table. Because, the man is just vacillating, jumping up and down and everything. And you can just tell that this man is after the money. He's still living in bondage, as someone said. The man is still living in bondage and he needs money. Maybe acting is not panning out. And he's just jumping from one person, looking for one person to milk. So it happens that maybe Peter Obi doesn't have the billions they say he has to give Kenneth Okonkwo, and now he thinks the next fat cow is Atiku Abubakar. I hear he has a lot of money to throw around. All the best to him, because on principle, everything he's saying is just counterintuitive. He's talking about corruption, yada, yada, yada. You're looking for somebody who is not corrupt. Atiku doesn't have a stellar reputation, number one. Number two, you said all your agenda is to make sure that an Igbo president is made the president of Nigeria, that you produce an Igbo president. Working for Atiku Abubakar is counterintuitive to that agenda as well. So the only obvious agenda is that you just want to put food on your table. If that's what you want to do, go ahead and say it. And I think there's a trend now. You know, when you become very, very vocal, you shout, they will now call you, Oga, come and sit down. Why you wanna watch John? Shebibi NEE, Kilorukwe. This former governor of Edo that is senator now. She will know she to Jack Kinini. Ó gyrate ju anything lọ. Ó kàn jó bí òkò tó káàkiri. Ó ti farabalẹ̀ ń sin, ó ti rówó. Ṣé wọ́n ló gbóbìnrin sórí private jet tán fọwọ́ pa lẹ́sẹ̀ tán fọwọ́ pa lórí just that's just by the way.
Kí n gbàgbé nǹkan ni.
Allegedly ni sá. So number two, ṣebí this guy that is working in President Tinubu's cabinet now, ṣebí he too was a staunch opposition spokesman talking down on the president. Now he's the one preaching the gospel of APC and President Tinubu, preaching it all around the world, including the mess he did in London the other day with this journalist. And now it's like this guy, he needs an appointment and he needs somebody to queue behind. Maybe they will get him some money before the end of this season. Second of all, thirdly, what will contribute is what we started with. Yes, the person they caught and talk to launch atrocities in Abuja, that is starting his own, that is crowning himself as the managing director of one at the court.
DG of agency.
Right? DG. Yeah, thank you, DG. Now, the issue is this. You know, you said something which is very, very important. A lot of people start businesses and they are looking for honest people. That should not be your agenda. Your agenda should be when you start a business or you start an organization, you create systems that makes people responsible. And I think this is just a wake-up call for the government. There should be means of verifying how people are getting themselves into the national budget, how things are being done and everything. Just like, especially if you are, you might argue that it's not public-facing. It's within the administration, within the executive and all that. But when you look at companies like MoneyPoint, like GTB, people that are facing the public, they can't afford to make that kind of mistake. That somebody will be somewhere scooping up billions of their profit margin. They create systems that cannot be hacked. Such should be in government. You shouldn't have that kind of guy get along with that kind of scam for so long. So then the last submission will be, I want to say this. If our people are listening to this, they should never make the mistake of employing non-Yorubas into any state police in the Southwest. They shouldn't start. Because if they start by employing non-Yorubas, they can't reverse it. It's going to be very difficult. They should own it. They should be bold about it. They should not kiss anybody's behind. Yoruba people, whether in Osun State, whether in Ondo State, whether in Lagos State, whether in Abeokuta or anywhere, it should only be Yoruba people, and we should be unapologetic about it. If you want every member of Nigeria, Fulani, you want them to be in your state, go and do it in Enugu, go and do it in Anambra. Don't come and do it in Southwest. We should do it, and we should do it unapologetically. If I can't share mistake here, so that's just my submission. Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you very much, Bumblebee. Fantastic submissions, and we need to protect our space. That's a fact. And I'm sure, seeing what's happening right now in Nigerian politics, nobody. CEO, please go on.
Yes, so Prof.
Ẹkáàbọ.
Okay, quick one. I think our friend, I'm going to start from the top. The gentleman that was arrested in Abuja, this is not the first time. There was also another incident during Buhari's regime where a guy walked, I can't remember the name of the agency, I've been trying to search for it on the internet. The guy walked into an agency, presented a letter of appointment as a director, and he was assigned to an office. And he was there for about 6 months until the DSS I don't know how they got to know. So I think.
But what makes people that bold? Like, what gives you that impetus to actually go ahead and this is federal government? You have police can catch you, DSS can catch you, and just do that.
But what's the worst that will happen now? You go to jail. That's if you don't even do because one thing I believe is that these things do not happen in isolation. To feel that confidence. He must have worked with some people to be able to get to that place. Because the other guy too, when he was arrested, I think some other he was actually a northerner, and I think some other people were actually also arrested along with him. And he had collected salary for 6 months. So I want to believe it's time that the federal government pay attention to its own agencies and their budget headlines to see where exactly our monies are going to. Because I don't believe that's the only one. There may be other ones that we don't know, both within the federal government, even state government. And my agency in some states, like governor go monk by, House of Assembly monk by, budget head, Then secondly, I think Peter Obi is fixated with the figure. Maybe he has a romance with that figure, 10,000, because we got to solve 10,000.
That's true. 10,000 megawatts, 10,000 healthcare. Never been. Said Emetonja Kutelu. You know, when comment Thomas say like in the early 90s. So Emma Bino guys, we're going to go back to it, and you get back to what you're saying. You know, there's a story. There's this episode, right? Kutelu she's a character in a comedy. So they asked her that you're going to get married to your husband, kini wa safe mo. Olomara agolo rice kan, ara tataje agolo kan, ata agolo kan, oro agolo kan, agolo kan. Ma say, well, the point is, if and I didn't think about it until you said it too. Anything we hear from Peter B now, most likely you're going to be hearing 10,000. But yeah, please continue your submission. I'll mute now.
I did a simple calculation. If you're going to establish 10,000, as a matter of fact, Nigeria has about 741 local governments. So I don't know where the figure of 10,000 is coming from. Even if you establish two in each local government.
Words, not local government. So you don't do it in all words. 8,000 plus. He now said, so he said 8,000 plus and now said 10,000 words. I don't know also how he added the 1,000 plus to it.
The 1,000 plus it. But the thing is that I don't think we need primary health care in each ward in Nigeria because there's proximity between the wards. Otherwise, you're going to have centers that are going to just be idle, not doing anything. And it has happened before. So we don't want that again. Then secondly, on power generation. Well, sorry, I did a quick calculation. If you're doing 10,000, minimum at least will not be 100 million naira. Both the building and equipping, Kamas or staffing. So that's already 1 trillion. I don't know, maybe he has some money that he wants to do to the federal government. But yeah, out there, extra budget allocation got to tap into. But yeah, what I donate from that to LP. I don't know. But like you rightly said, I mean, people do not situate things appropriately. There is primary health care, there's secondary, there's tertiary. Primary is, essentially the responsibility of the local government. But people just shout and talk everything in Nigeria because we have been orientated with that unitary mentality. So everything is federal government. Federal government, low cost, so it's just, as a matter of fact, if the first two sectors, the primary and the secondary, are fully functional, you may not even need federal government to invest in health, as a matter of fact. But it's a country, we know it is Nigeria, so the federal government still has to provide some level of support. Then on electricity, beyond transmission, one of the other major problems that we have in Nigeria is pricing. Because for a long time, there's something that is called cost-reflective tariff, in the sense that the electricity that we are consuming, we're actually not paying for it. So no matter the amount of money you pump into that sector, you are not going to get results. Like you rightly said, Nigeria currently has nameplate capacity for Nigeria. As in, my machine capacity to deliver is actually about 23,000 megawatts. But the actual capacity that is being generated, or that we can generate, not being generated, that we can generate, is about 14,500 megawatts. But this power is what we call stranded power. because they cannot move on the grid. The grid can only support a maximum of 6,000 megawatts. And of course, there are also inherent losses in there. So efficiency of the grid has depreciated over time. So it can only move like about 4,500, max 4,800. If you push it beyond that, it's going to collapse. And that is why this government has decided to decentralize so that states can now begin to set up mini grids. So our location, town power plants, they push it onto the grid, they can now push it onto the state mini grid and then be able to support it. And it is best policy. It is actually what ought to have been an average conservative estimate about 100,000 megawatts. If you're going to do 100,000 megawatts in Nigeria, you're looking for like about $150 billion. Even if that budget, okay, gbogbo owó tá ń ṣúná fún ọdún kọ̀ọ̀kan electricity nìkan la fẹ́ face, we need at least minimum of like about 5 budget cycles to be able to do that, which the country doesn't have. So decentralization is actually the way to go, and it's what this government has been pushing. And so far, a lot of states have taken advantage of it. Lagos State has licensed like about 14 generating companies already, and I see a situation whereby in the next 5 years, we won't even be talking about electricity anymore, because I mean, people ordinarily will have realized, oh, this now within the purview of the state, and states that are alive to their responsibility and are smart enough can take advantage of it to boost the economy of their state. Because for economy, for economy to be sustained, you need electricity to run the economy, and that's just the way it is. Then, lastly, on Kenneth Okonkwo. Kenneth Okonkwo is somebody that talks from both sides of his mouth. Everybody knows that. And like Bumblebee rightly said, Mr. Peter Obi, we know they give shishi. Go give shishi. So shishi yẹn ló jẹ́ kí Kenneth Okonkwo lọ wá tó máa give naira. So I will hand it with that. Thank you very much.
What did Kenneth Okonkwo, what did he do to you people? I mean, thank you very much for that brilliant submission. Very good. And thank you for breaking down the electricity thing. Like I always say, sometimes we come here and it should just be nice, to hear from people who work in some of these spaces, to break things down for us so that we're all, informed, properly informed. But they mentioned something about billing, and there's a report that Cable Index put out earlier today. Is the total billing and revenue collected by distribution companies in Nigeria, April 2026. So this report is for April, and their source is NERC. And here are the numbers. Abuja, they billed 44. Please just take a listen. It may sound a bit figures, but there's a story in there. Abuja billing figure was 44.36 billion. That's how much the distribution companies billed the customers, right? Those who use electricity, 44.36 billion. But what they generated in terms of revenue was 37.55 billion. So that's a shortfall of almost 7 billion. Ikeja, 41.5 billion. That's what they billed. Revenue was 37.34. Eko, 39.12 billion naira. Revenue 36.87. Ibadan 30.35 billion. Revenue 21.74 billion. Enugu 19.70 billion. Revenue. By the way, these are not towns, so these are distribution companies. So when you hear Ibadan, it's not Ibadan as a town or a city. It's Ibadan distribution company, because that company covers parts of Ogun State, parts of all over your state. I think even parts of, if not all of Osun State as well. So IBEDC, that's what they call it. Eco EDC, Lagos has two. There's Eco EDC, there's a Ikeja distribution company as well. It was 13.92 billion. Port Harcourt 17.32, revenue 15.83, and so on and so forth. There's Benin, Kano, Kaduna, Jos, and Yola trailing with 5.3 billion billing and 3.63 billion in terms of revenue. So what that means basically is this: throughout the month of April, the total billings was 252.43 billion naira. That's how much they billed, but the total revenue collected was 203.61 billion. So that's about 80.66% efficiency. So I set out to say that perhaps they are also sorry. Yes, perhaps they're also considering that, right, in being able to actually deliver good electricity. I also think that we're not even paying, and I'm not saying this like I always say, because people will be like, people are struggling. All of us, God will help all of us. I don't say this as somebody who has, like, trillions short somewhere, but I think it may be a bit difficult to attract the kind of investment that Nigeria needs in the electricity sector. Similar to what happened with refinery, right? You need to have subsidy removed so people can pay the true or the actual cost of the services being provided, and then you can see, players, private sector players, come into the fray and then put in their money, because they know that they're not going to do something. You begin to tell them that, kiniko. So I think that's something. And also, someone wrote in the comment section, Akado says, so much stealing distribution companies, which some people consider to also be unfair to the generality of the people. But there's also this thing where people bypass the meters. Nigerians, we are blessed. What we think means, what we say, when we say things like we are smart, along, a lot of it is just stealing. Like my mother used to say, stealing by practice. Because why on earth would you bypass meters and then you'll be telling us that Nigeria is not good? America went to America, China went to China. Anyway, thank you, CEO Coded, for that explanation. Let's now go to the document I mentioned earlier. This document is from the French Institute of Research in Africa. They have a French name, but when you put it together, you get the acronym IFRA, I-F-R-A. Institut Français de Recherche en Afrique. I have a teacher here who teaches me French. I hope I got it right. Just tell me in private if that's how to pronounce it. Anyway, it's called French Institute for Research in Africa. They did this work on approaching the study of Yorùbá diaspora in northern Nigeria in the 20th century. Why is this important? By the way, this stuff was written by Rashid Olani, all right, but it's a project for IFRA, special research. Why is this important? So yesterday we were talking about relationship. One second before we go on. Someone says, trust me, I know someone who bypassed meter in Ikeja and they got power 24/7. Nigeria, madam. Let's go back to this topic. Yesterday, we were having a conversation about relationships between different ethnic groups, between Yorùbá and some other ethnic groups. And we mentioned that there are groups in Nigeria with whom we've had relationship for many centuries, right? With the Hausa, for instance, it's been more than 5 centuries. And we got into that conversation because we're discussing the relationship between Hausa and Fulani and how things were. And so what I'm saying basically is that the relationship between Yoruba people and Hausa predates the incursion or the arrival of the Fulani. It wasn't like they arrived in 1804, but let's just say before the jihad. Okay, Yoruba people and Hausa people have a relationship. And since the jihad, Yoruba people and Fulani too have been having a relationship. All right, but today the conversation is about a relationship with Hausa. And that came up because somewhere in the conversation we had yesterday, we talked about what was happening from the southeast, where people are saying things like, we are one, we live together, we have Kiniko. And I'm like, we've had relationship with people for 500 years who do not try to change our history and our identity, right? How come we're having people with whom we've not really related for up to 100 years? Because to be honest, now, in truth, right, we Yoruba and again, this is not, just to be clear, this is not like everybody's dating, because sometimes you can't have these conversations without people being funny. So please, if you want to write in the comment section, whether on YouTube or like you always do, please just help me. Let's concentrate on the topic. Don't come with childish nonsense of you hate us. It's rubbish. Thank you for your understanding. So this is not about hate, okay? We're just trying to set the record straight. Nobody hates anybody. I don't have that time personally. But here's the thing: if you really want to go through recorded history, okay, our relationship with the South is with Igbo people is barely 100 years. Okay, it began in late 20s, early 30s. All right. Have there been Igbo people who have come to, most likely, through different means, which I don't want to mention because it's not very palatable. Have there been exchanges, maybe of culture or whatever? Yes. And in most cases, it's through Benin. In truth, we don't share boundaries with the Southeast, right? And that's, I mean, you have to cross many seas and many rivers and streams and hills and valleys to move from Igbo land into Yoruba land. However, you have this bridge in Benin, and you also see that in Onitsha. For instance, there's a reason Onitsha people, that's not today's topic, but I'm going somewhere. There's a reason Onitsha people see themselves as superior, and it's because of their, not just affinity, but their historical connection with the Benin, particularly when you're talking about Ezechima. Now, so oftentimes that were present in Ife, they also found it, or maybe, I don't know. But what I can tell you is that definitely, if you're looking for the bridge between those two communities, you most likely find in Benin, because there's a strong influence of Yoruba in Benin, just as, you know, you also find parts of Yoruba land who are also influenced by Benin, all right? All of that to say that those with whom we've related in the last 100 years, which one be that one now? Bubble gum. Which you should give to Morila or Jometa. But thank you very much, Tidan, for the bubble gum. Okay. Thank you. TikTok is an interesting place, man. All right. So, I'm still trying to imagine. I just saw the gum exploding. So, the reason we're having a conversation is because if you've had a relationship with people for centuries, and it's not just Hausa, truth be told, if you really look at the Yoruba people and our connections in Nigeria, pre-colonization, you most likely look towards the north more than towards the south. In the south, you say Benin, and the Benin connection with Yoruba land is through Ife, and that happened centuries ago. And that's, nothing can change that one, regardless of the revisionist, history that they're putting all over the place, which just are nonsense. But that relationship is there, and there's nothing wrong with that, regardless of what people think. In the south, I don't know of any other group that is closely related to Yoruba people. All right. They do trade with other people, most likely. I mean, it's trade, but prominent, we feature prominently, or we also have Benin people feature prominently in our history as we feature in theirs. But you have to look towards the north. You see the Nupe, you see the Baroba, you see the Hausa, you see the Kanuri, among many others. But those four are major. Nupe, Baroba, which some people call Ibaruba. Interestingly, towards the northern part of Yoruba land, there's a lot of mixture, there's a lot of relationship over centuries with both Nupe, because we live together, and Baroba as well. And they're still in present-day Kwara State as they are in, I think Nupe is also in Niger State, right? But beyond those two, you have Hausa, you have Kanuri. As a matter of fact, the Kanuri even have a story in their own myth. There's a particular myth they have that says that they and Yoruba people were together. And this is not a myth based on Nigeria's history. Okay, this is not a Nigerian-made myth. One of the things I've noticed with this country is some people just come and they retroactively assign roles to people in their so-called myth of origin. And then before you know it, you're becoming siblings with people that you're not even related with. And now, it is possible that somewhere thousands of years ago, before before the Congo family. So we are very, but we are not siblings like that. Why is this important? Because there is a coordinated plan to rewrite Yoruba history by going to the very source of Yoruba people, which is Ile-Ife. I want to make it very, very clear. You can call me a bigot, I don't care. I'm an Ife man, I don't care what you think. Igbos are not from Ife. They are not related to Ife. There's nothing connecting us to Ife. And I know that's not today's topic, but it's important for me to say it. And I will say it this way again. They are Igbo in Ife. I think I need to say this before we read this book, because we'll be reading a lot. They are Igbo people in Ife. Those people are also called Ugbo people. Okay? The Ugbo and the Igbo are not the Igbo. Today you see somebody from the southeast who say, I am Igbo. In actual fact, that sound does not exist in his language. GB to them is just the spelling that was adopted to interpret the sound they produce when they say B. It's not B, it's B. It's like BW. That's why when you read Among the Igbos, written by G.T. Barsden in 1921, it was published in 21, he wrote there, and it was very correct. And I know that because of what I did when I was in secondary school. He wrote there that the best pronunciation of the name Igbo is not IBO, it's actually IBWO. And because I know exactly what he's talking about, I was like, I approve that message. And why do I say that? Because when I was in secondary school, and I've said this before, I think Igbo is a very interesting language. I studied Igbo in secondary school. I haven't had A1 in my junior YEC. Go figure. I didn't have A1 in Yorùbá at that time, but later I fixed it. But junior YEC, I had A1 in Igbo. It was it is a very interesting language. Also, counting in Igbo is a lot easier than Yorùbá. Yorùbá counting is complex, but it's beautiful. You do it, your head is working. Even you can tell that your mind is calculating. You are multiplying and adding and subtracting in order to mention just one figure. You know, I've done it before here, and just think about it. If you're a Yoruba person, I'm sure you'll be able to appreciate that. I'm tempted to do it, but let's just move on. The point I'm trying to make is that when you pronounce words in Igbo, whenever they write GB, they don't say B, they say B. So it's like Ogba, Igbo. So it's not Igbo. So all these things that you now see people say things like, because Yoruba people have something Yoruba land called Igbo, therefore it is connected with the Southeast. It is a product of inferiority. It's a product of people who are yet to find exactly where they come from and who are going to attach themselves to every group, including China and America and Europe, Europa, Americanka, Japan, Zulu, and so on and so forth. But we have to resist it, just as Israel resisted it. They said they were Israelites. Those ones did DNA. They said they're not Israelites. So we don't have to even do DNA. But if we want, and the reason we don't have to do DNA is because you are literally lying based on another group in Yoruba land. We are not connected. Does that mean that you hate the other person? I don't say I'm connected with an Akwa Ibom person, but I love Akwa Ibom with. I don't know. I just love that place because I served there. That's all. But I love Akwa Ibom. But I don't have to tell the BBO person that we are connected and we are originally from Akwa Ibom. And doesn't make sense. It actually shows inferiority. Having said that, let's talk about a group or some groups with whom we as Yoruba people have related for centuries and how they see us, how they view us, and some of the things that are not very popular about our relationship, but I think that will help us understand the connections we have. So let's begin with this portion. Again, it's a paper written by Rashid Olaniyi. It's a special, it's a IFRA special research. All right. I mentioned IFRA being French Institute of Research. Wait, let me finish that word. French Institute for Research in Africa. All right, let's do this. Yoruba diaspora in northern Nigeria is better understood with the historical context of the respective host communities. I want to read this stuff from Kanuri before I go to Hausa. Stay with me, please. Yoruba diaspora in northern Nigeria is better understood within the historical context of the respective host communities and indeed the entire history of northern Nigeria as a whole. It is important to examine the interaction of resources and opportunities in order to understand the dynamics of Yoruba commerce in northern Nigeria. I'm going to jump a few paragraphs. Somebody called Issa Hashim tried to offer 3 explanations why the Yoruba were accepted in the north. He said, first, according to Islamic tradition, the Yoruba were regarded as brothers and sisters of the Hausa people because the majority of Yoruba migrants were Muslims. This is actually not a very, I mean, this would have been something that came up later, not what happened hundreds of years ago. The first set of guys did not do that because of religion, it was because of trade. But let's go on. So it says this suggests why Yoruba have been assimilated into Hausa culture and enjoy accommodation. Second, economically, they were hardworking in terms of their technical skills, productivity, and quality of work delivery. Third, the Yoruba shared myth of origin with Kanuri. Oral tradition in Borno has it that the Yoruba and Kanuri were cousins. According to one mythology, the Yoruba were said to be outspoken, instead discussing their private affairs in public, particularly those issues concerning their sexuality. The Kanuri thus refer to the Yoruba as Kairuba, meaning that there is no alheri in your habit. That is, you don't keep secret. It was from Kairuba that Yoruba was derived, according to their own myth. It is not history. But here's the point. For a group to have a myth about you in pre-colonial Nigeria, right? No Oyinbo contact. It shows that there's been a relationship. Meanwhile, I should also mention this. There are families in Lagos today whose great-great-grandfathers were Kanuri. Okay? One of Madam Tinubu's husband was actually a Kanuri man, and he eventually assimilated into Eko, into Yoruba culture, and a lot of his children became Yoruba. Not the one that, it's not like, interestingly, Madam Tinubu did not even give birth to kids for him, but his children adopted the woman, and interestingly, many of them eventually also adopted her name. But we'll talk about that some other time. Let's now go straight to the one that we really want to discuss here today. So, historical relationship, I mean, I'm jumping a lot of pages, but we don't have a lot of time, but we're going to get the meat of what we're discussing today. The historical relationship between the peoples of Northern Nigeria and the Yoruba runs deep. For more than 500 years before the British rule. Okay? Not even 500 years, not even 500 years before today. 500 years before Oyinbo arrived. Sorry, before the British arrived. The Portuguese, no, the British. And that would be in the 19th century. The British got to our shores in the 19th century. The Portuguese got here in the 16th century, right? For 1500s, right? So the Portuguese got here before the British. Anyway, so we've been having relationships since at least the 14th century with the Hausa. The historical relationship between peoples of Northern Nigeria and the Yoruba runs deep. For more than 500 years before the British rule, Yoruba merchants traversed communities in Northern Nigeria and established their abodes. For example, Yoruba traders established Angwa Ayagi and Lalemi quarters in Kano and Bida, respectively. They were assimilated, and their descendants today form the core of peoples in the region. Nigeria is full of examples of individuals and groups who form settled communities of occupational specialists in societies other than their own. A very good example, a similar example is some Benin people who moved into places in present-day Ekiti State and some parts of Ondo State. Right. So there are two conversations we're having here. One is a group that goes into a particular place and assimilated into that culture. They can cease to become where they're coming from and become the new people there. One assimilates totally. Then there's another one. It's not about assimilation as much as it is about integration. Those ones still keep who they are, their identity, but they're also able to add something from the host community to their culture, and so they have essentially the best of both worlds, but they're not necessarily indigenous. But there are people who have become indigenous in Yoruba land who 3 generations ago were not even Yoruba, just as the Yoruba people who have moved into some parts of the north who 4, 5 generations ago were not from those places, but now they claim those places. Now that cannot happen without assimilation. What some people want to have in Nigeria is to eat their cake and have it. In other words, and you know, it's even worse, right? It will give you 3 categories, right? You have one who assimilates. In other words, you jettison where you're coming from, and then you take on this one. So you become this. Then you have another one where you hold on to what you have, but then you take something from here, you integrate, okay? Then you have a third group who are basically clowns, who hold on to where they come from, denigrate where they are, and want to be part of where they are. Those ones are clowns, All right. And they can't get anything, particularly in Yoruba land. Just saying. Let's go back. I didn't mention any group. If the shoe fits, please wear it with pride. So it says these Yoruba people in Kano and in Bida were assimilated, and the descendants today form the core. Just as I was going to give you an example of Benin people in Ondo State. I don't know if you've heard of this woman. She's late now. She was a professor of philosophy, Professor Bosede Sofioluwole. Professor Sofioluwole is from Igbaroke. She is from Igbaroke. She was from Igbaroke. She was a Yoruba woman through and through. However, her grandfather was not Yoruba. I also want to have this conversation because there are also conversations that we are hearing right now among Yoruba people who are trying to go for a purist form of identity. It's a very dangerous thing. I won't explain it too much right now, but you get it as we go on. This thing where the blood, how pure, those things are dangerous. Professor Sofioluwole did fantastic work for Yoruba philosophy, African philosophy, particularly for Yoruba philosophy, and she changed the game totally. She wrote a book, I want to recommend it to you, Socrates and Orunmila, two patron saints of classical philosophy. Fantastic work, all right? But here's the point I'm trying to make. She was from Igbaroke, right? Her surname was Aloba. She had a brother, I think he's still alive. I think his name is Abiodun. The surname is Aloba. But their grandfather's name was a Gariva. He was Benin. All right? And you see the same example in different parts of Ondo State and different parts of Ekiti State. And why? Is because that part of Yoruba land is very close. There's proximity between that place and Benin. A lot of people moved into Yoruba land to trade. Some of them stayed back, and some of them even formed what they call traders' colony. And over time, some of them assimilated into Yoruba culture and became Yoruba. And one of those would be the Aloba, son of a Gariva, who then gave birth to Sophie Oluwole. Oluwole was her husband's name, but her maiden name was Aloba. But the Aloba himself was given birth to by a Benin man. You see how it can be complex. But you cannot use that in Nigeria, Kenneth, because the people that are trying to enter Nigeria stuff, they don't have enough sense to assimilate. They don't even care about integration. They just want to shout, I have rights. Sensible people don't shout like that. But, it is what it is. Let's go on. So it says that the people, as they were assimilated and descendants, I'll tell that again. Yoruba traders established Angua, Yagi, and Lalemi quarters. If I'm not pronouncing it correctly to Hausa people or Baraba people, just take me like that, Okay. So they established those communities' quarters in Kano and Bida respectively. They were assimilated and their descendants today form the core of peoples in the region. Nigeria is full of examples of individuals and groups who form settlement communities or settled communities of occupational specialists in societies other than their own. We also have a lot of them in Lagos, particularly from present-day Borno State. Somebody came here, I think it was last year, who was like, "You're talking about my family. They are Yoruba today, but their great-grandfather was from Kanuri. There are also Nupe people in parts of Lagos today. They are Yoruba today, but their great-grandfather was from Nupe, or was Nupe." So it says societies with centralized political structures accommodated culturally diverse groups with different modes of livelihood within a single political system. Immigrants provided complementary services alien to the host community, which often added value to the economy. A very good example of that is what you find in Abeokuta. There are families in Abeokuta today, in some parts of Abeokuta, who are Yoruba today, but who 3 generations ago were Hausa. Not them, their fathers. I hope we're getting somewhere. Okay. While we do all of these things, we'll talk more about it as we go on. Just let's take some of the details, some of the information to help us, understand inter-ethnic relationships in Nigeria before colonialism, and why we speak the way we do about protecting Yoruba land is because folks are not thinking of acculturation. They are just trying to demand rights where they have left. In the 20th century, the formation of Yoruba diaspora in the northern Nigeria has had a linkage with the British conquest and colonial rule. Migration was largely driven by colonial labor policies, commercial opportunities available for Africans, and deprivations during economic crisis. Then it says, for example, Dr. D.R. Aronson observes that it was the wage labor of the colonial economy together with indigenous institutions of Yoruba society which provided the framework for individual migration. Thus, economic pursuits produced a set of Yoruba craftsmen, laborers, and traders in cities. I'll pause to answer a question. Someone says, I missed that in Abeokuta, but from where? I think the Mokola area has it. I'll look for the exact spaces. I'm also very careful not to mention the particular spaces. There's a reason I do that. In Ibadan also, we have certain places where the people who live there are Takpa people. As a matter of fact, I don't even have to think about it too much. Just ask anybody for Ago Takpa. Some of them hold on to the Takpa. By the way, Takpa is what Yoruba people call Nupe. You know, ethnic names can be endonyms or exonyms. In other words, you can name yourself or people can name you something. Okay? So we call them Takpa, Nupe people. They have established, we have all kinds of things in Yoruba land. Also I'm also trying to disabuse Yoruba mind from this thing where don't let the situation in Nigeria turn you into a primitive person. Okay? You are from a group that has historically built cities. This document, I don't want to change topic. I want a fantastic document about what the British discovered when they got to Nigeria. More than 80% of urban centers in Nigeria at the time of the British arrival, around that figure, were actually in Yoruba area. Many of the cities, you know what? Sorry, guys. Because of what this person wrote, and I want to quickly use the opportunity to pivot into something, then I'll go back to what we're discussing. Mombo. I hope I find it very quickly. Where was that? I'll find it later. I don't want to change topic too much. But here's the point. The point is that we have loads and loads of cities across Yoruba land. And what that means basically is that we always had different cultures, different people come around. It's just that those people are not stupid, or they were not stupid enough to say that we own this place, all right, or that they're going to displace us. Like the buffoon who made a video the other day saying there's going to be natural selection in Lagos, and they, as stronger species, will, wipe off the things people say. You wipe off host community. A person who, on the ladder of evolution, you are somewhere close to a Neanderthal, you are thinking of out. Okay. Anyway, I said all that to say that this conversation should also help us to appreciate where we're coming from and not allow the noise in Nigeria begin to make us act as though, oh, this person is not pure, that person is not pure. I hear you, Yoruba. That's what I said yesterday. I'm building something gradually. We're going to arrive there at some point. That the idea that somebody is more Yoruba than the other is ridiculous. It's not consistent with Yorubaness. Okay? But that doesn't mean that we should not guard our space. We have to be able to think beyond the binaries of either this or that. It can be this and that. We're going to get there. Let's continue. Let's go back to the book. I'll read out that document later, but let's stick to this for now. So here they're saying that economic pursuit produced a set of Yoruba craftsmen, laborers, and traders in cities, particularly in the north. The British utilized the services of the Yoruba in the conquest of northern Nigeria. Some Yoruba served as spies, commercial agents. By the way, they also did the same thing with Hausa people in Yoruba land. So I say this because if you're Yoruba person, don't feel any bad, they don't feel anyhow about it. They used their house. What the British did was to take from here, there, from there, here, so that you will not have any allegiance to the host community, which is what you see almost similar in how we run the Nigerian police force today. We are literally following a colonial template where you take a people from their own space, take them somewhere else, and then their allegiance is to you as a colonial government, not to the people they're supposed to be policing. So when they say police is your friend, you don't really know what they're talking about. It's actually it's a British, legacy, so to speak, or heritage. But let's continue what we have here. So Yoruba people worked as spies, commercial agents, and members of the West African Frontier Force. That's the army. In 1900, please pay attention to what I'm about to read. Please pay attention to this. It was the big. This is actually what made me look for this document. Okay, years ago, fantastic information. Emagbo. In 1900, when Lord Lugard took over the colonial administration from the Royal Niger Company, its constabulary was absorbed into the West African Frontier Force, which was formed in 1898. That's like what became the army. For a long period, the force remained largely dominated by the Yoruba. Sorry, excuse me. Let's go back. In 1900, when Lord Lugard took over the colonial administration from the Royal Niger Company, its constabulary, that's the constabulary of the Royal Niger Company, was absorbed into the West African Frontier Force that became Nigerian Army later, which was formed in 1898. For a long period, the force remained largely dominated by the Hausa and Yoruba. The civil government police force raised for the North included the Yoruba in its service. Pay attention. In 1908, not 2008, in 1908, the force was made up of, wait for it, 240 Hausa, 216 Yoruba, 102 Beriberi, 53 Fulani, 25 Nupe, and 54 others. When? 1908. Okay? The police in the north, right, had 240 Hausa people, in that force, in their personnel list, in the staff list, whatever you want to call it. But after the Hausa 240, you had 216 Yoruba people. We had more Yoruba people in the police in 1908 in the north than the Fulani. Fulani were 53. Beriberi were 102. Nupe were 25. And then other groups across the place, 54. In Kano, by 1914, the government police were composed entirely of Yoruba ethnic group. Like I said, they did the same thing in the West. By the way, I should also quickly add this. If you read about the Magbon War of 1892, 92, right? One second. I'll tell you what I want to say while I'm looking for the data. I want to be sure. The British colonial government, by the way, Magbon War took place in Ijebu. That was to break the hold of Ijebu on the monopoly that stopped other Yoruba people from being able to access Lagos, right? Supported by Egba. But when the British were going to attack, they also came with a lot of Hausa soldiers. Give me a second. I want to be sure. That should be 1892. Yeah, May 19, 1892. So yeah, I want to be sure so I don't give wrong information. So it was 1892 Magbon War, or it's also called sometimes Anglo-Ijebu War. That's the war between the British and the Ijebu people. They also used a lot of Hausa. They also brought people from Ghana and so on and so forth. The point I'm trying to make is that just like they did in the north, they also did here in Yoruba land and also in Lagos. By the way, the people they went to fight in Ijebu were folks that they brought from the north who were domiciled in Lagos, who now went to fight in Ijebu. In Kano, by 1914, the government police were composed entirely of Yoruba ethnic group. Some of the Yoruba who served gallantly in the British Army were rewarded with administrative positions in northern Nigeria. Please permit me to find a book. Journey in Service by IBB. I know some people don't like, the book, but there are some interesting things in that book. I want to read something to you about what happened in Minna in the early 20th century, just about, I think it was 1912, thereabout. Mumbo, I'll find it for you. So you also appreciate Atiku as Yoruba people. It's just that people don't move mad telling all the owners of the land, we not go agree. That's just nonsense. 1 second, I'll find it for you. Oh dear, it has to be fast. We have to be fast. The story essentially is of how, just to corroborate what we read. So I like, using one document to corroborate whatever we're hearing, so that it doesn't look like we're looking at things from one perspective. Then you're not able to substantiate the claims you're making. All right. 1 second. Umbo. Found it. This is from Johnny in Service by General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida. It says here, Mina, this was in 1910, and I'll tell you what happened in 1912. Mina had become such a growing metropolis that the 1910 census of the town showed that Mina had a population of more non-indigens than indigens as early as the period under review, with the following figures. Pay attention. Gwari, 5%. Nupe, 17.7%. Hausa Fulani, 31.1%. Yoruba, 11.9%. And others, 34.3%. After further administrative arrangements between 1912 and 1924, Mina regained its status as the provincial headquarters of Niger Province and remained so until 1970, when the provincial arrangement was scrapped. I'm going to jump just a bit. Mina remained in the complete focus of the British for many years after. I'll tell that again slowly. Mina remained in the complete focus of the British for many years after. In 1939, in a move to consolidate its hold in the area, the resident British district officer in Mina. So again, remember, as of 1910, Yoruba people in that place were 11.9% of the entire population. Hausa were 31.1%, the Nupe were 17.7%, and the Gwari were 5% of Mina. By 1939, in a move to consolidate its hold on the area, the resident British district officer in Mina, Mr. Nesbitt Oz, directed that the town of Mina be divided territorially into 6 wards. Please pay attention. Each with its salaried overseer, responsible to the town council for the collection of taxes. Incidentally, 2 of these 6 wards, Kwangila and Makera, were headed by Yorubas, Mr. Peter Alimosonya and Mr. J.L. Mosa Domi, respectively. The other 4 wards were Sabongwari under Malam Aliyu Boso, Keteren Gwari under Joseph Shehu, with Usman Shehu as head of Nasarawa ward, and Limawa ward under Adamu Gajere. When was this? 1939. At the time, the folks were trying to say that they want to displace people in Lagos. We don't even really understand. I know where they were. At the bottom rungs of society in Yoruba land, working for the British. Meanwhile, at that particular point in time, you have Yoruba people leading places, but you see Yoruba people going around and moving like something is wrong with them. They don't, because you're supposed to have sense as people who have evolved. May that be our testimony in Jesus' name. Somebody say amen. All right. We're going to go back to the book we started with. So the point is, at that time, as of 1910, you already had a substantial chunk of the people, right, in Mina being Yoruba. And when the district was divided into 6 wards, 2 of those wards were headed by Yoruba people. Even today, whether it's in Mina or in Jos, or in those places, you still see a lot of Yoruba people there, particularly Okomosho people. For some reason, they love to travel. You also find them in Tamale and in Accra and Kumasi, in Ghana. Just to tell you that we also move to people's places. We just don't go there and be shouting, I have right. Let's go back to where we're coming from, the report. I'm going away from that Babangida Badamasi you're saying, because he mentioned it in his book that his own grandfather was, I think, from Sokoto. That's in his biography, his autobiography that I read earlier. But let's not make it about him right now. Let's go back to this. So it says here, in Kano, by 1914, the government police was composed entirely of Yoruba ethnic group. Some of the Yoruba who served gallantly in the British Army were rewarded with administrative positions in northern Nigeria. Excuse me, that's what I'm trying to go. And then I now went to read what also happened in Mina. Okay? But that was even much later. This was 1914. Yoruba were already occupying administrative positions in northern Nigeria. In the non-Muslim areas of northern Nigeria, the British imposed, pay attention though, the British imposed non-indigenous chiefs on the people for the purposes of suppressing rebellion and collection of taxes. For example, in the Abenshi division of Tivland, Audu Danafonja, a Yoruba Muslim from Ilorin, was imposed as the chief of Makodi between 1914 and 1947. He had formerly served as a British agent and spy in the area. In Tekina is in present-day Kogi State, by the way. In Tekina, Amodu Yoruba was imposed as the Ono of Tekina between 1914 and 1918 as a result of his role as a member of the WAFF, that's West African Frontier Force, in the conquest of Igala land. His rule was he arbitrarily raised taxes from 1 shillings to 10 shillings per adult male. But his rule ended in turmoil and he was eventually sentenced to 4 years imprisonment. The railway construction led to the employment of Yoruba in several projects and the migration and settlement patterns across communities. But by the way, that's what you have when you have the British forcing, an outsider on another insider. Sorry guys, there's a retard who just came in. Let's just send him to where he belongs, which is muted, unable to talk, and make you dumb, and go to the naughty corner. God bless you. Where were we? Gosh, I feel like talking. Did this clown actually come in to say, should I talk? No. No. Let me not dignify the fool, because you're a proper fool. I'm not talking to all of us, so it's one retard in the comment section I'm talking to. He knows himself, by the way. Let's not make him popular. Let's go back to the book. The railway construction led to the employment of the Yoruba in several projects and their migration and settlement patterns across communities, both rural and urban. In northern Nigeria, both rural and urban in northern Nigeria. In 1912, the completion of the Baro-Kano Railway marked a turning point in Yoruba migration to northern Nigeria. From the northern Yoruba towns, there were migrations from Kaba, Ijumu, Isanlu, Ofa, and Ilorin to Kaduna between 1916 and 1917. After the First World War, more Yoruba, especially from Ogumosho, Ilorin, and Kaba, migrated to Kaduna in an attempt to participate in the booming commerce about which they had received information from their family and social networks. From Funtua, Nguru, Makodi, Malamadori to Jos, Yoruba diaspora communities were established along the rail lines, taking advantage of modern communication for foodstuff, livestock, groundnut, and kola nut trades. By the 1920s, the scarcity of Hausa clerical staff made the British employ Southerners in the administration of northern Nigeria. Beyond the colonial institutions, for most Yoruba in northern Nigeria, migration occurred within the kinship and social networks. Yoruba developed diaspora communities through migration of kinship linkages, kinship as in family relationships, kinship linkages from the same town and family compounds. Successful pioneer migrants encourage others to follow, and supportive social mechanisms emerged to connect places of origin and diaspora. A very good example, for instance, is Chief SLA's father, who also moved to Mina. SLA grew up in Mina at a particular point before he then returned to the west. So a lot of people in Ogumosho, like they mentioned, Ogumosho, Ilorin, Kaba, moved up north. Throughout the colonial era, migration was a crucial identity among the Yoruba. Yoruba migrants in cities were better viewed than their folks that stayed at home. Commercial opportunities in the colonial era influenced migration of Yoruba to northern Nigeria. For example, the Jos Township Market created the pool and Ogumosho people flocked in. 1 second, please. All right, say that again. It says, for instance, the Jos Township Market created the pool and Ogumosho people flocked in. Those who had already settled in places such as Mina and Bida could not resist the prospects of making money in the tin mining city. By the end of the 1930s, the Jos market was dominated by Ogumosho merchant families such as Adire, Ayetoro, Odefara, Mafoni, Banki, Onilu, Araromi, Magajiya, Takpa, Idowoke, Idowosale, and Sabo, which developed to reflect the identity of the new traders and their cultural background. Nevertheless, colonial rule created distortions in ethnic relations, whose consequences still prevail. During the colonial era, the tasks facing Yorùbá in diaspora changed dramatically from those that faced their predecessors in the pre-colonial era. In the pre-colonial era, migration often led to integration with the host community, while in the colonial period, migration was overwhelmingly marked by segregation. Let me stop there to just say something before we continue reading. So, in days of our fathers, all these centuries we've been working together with the North before the British arrived. By the way, all the two kings they mentioned earlier, one of them was just suppressing his people. That will happen, of course, after colonization or during colonization, right? But before colonization, if you move to a particular place and you wanted to stay there, basic common sense, and call it God smelly. You insulate, you become part of them, you assimilate into that space. But when the British came, they came with a plan to actually isolate the migrants who are coming into the city. It will interest you to know that the first set of Sabongeri that actually became really grand, that we talk about in Nigeria, or in the northern part of Nigeria, were actually the design of the British. It wasn't native to the Hausa communities. They didn't just say, okay, if you're a stranger, you live there. It was the British who wanted to create a dichotomy or a division between the migrants and the owners of the land. Normally, when you go to the land, you will learn the language, you will live among them, you speak the language, you become one of them, you become part of them. They can even get to a particular point, they can even call you one of them. That's what sensible people still do, by the way, okay? People still do it in Nigeria. It's just that some people require government and constitution to teach them what basic common sense should teach them. But in reality, the change occurred because of British colonization. Let's continue reading. The establishment of Sabongeri between 1911 and 1913 was a central thrust of the British divide and rule system, constructed to make colonial rule flourish on ethnic division and enforcement of segregation. Let me quickly pause and say something. Before you blame the British for creating division, understand that before them, you had to assimilate. Now, this thing makes a lot of... Because people can take your word and twist it. They are not saying that before the British came, we could just move into any place and shout, we have right and we are doing anything we wanted to do, and nobody really stopped everybody. But the British now came and divided us. That's not what they're saying. What they're saying is that before the British, you became part of the society. I know I've said it before, it's important to repeat. You become part of the society, you assimilate into that culture, right? You become one of the people, and that would be cool. So you mix. When the British came, they wanted to divide and rule, just like they are putting Hausa police officers in Yorùbá land, Yorùbá officers in Hausa land. They also did the same thing with segregating. I mean, you understand what happened in apartheid South Africa? Something similar. The difference is just that rather than have whites on one hand, or even rather than have the white living on one hand and the black living on one hand, what it now did is to stay within the same place, bring a new group, just like the settlers moved into parts of South Africa or parts of the United States and then created that segregation. The Oyimbos also did it in Nigeria, but it did it between or among ethnicities rather than ethnic nationalities rather than based on race or color. The establishment of Sabongeri between 1911 and 1913 was a central thrust. Now, this makes sense. So, I just remember that somebody said I was wearing something close that looks like teeth. I like that I'm wearing this now, so it makes sense. Okay, let's continue. Don't worry, just a joke that probably wasn't funny to you, but it's funny to me. The establishment of Sabongeri between 1911 and 1913 was a central thrust of the British divide and rule system, constructed to make colonial rule flourish on ethnic division and enforcement of segregation. In the colonial era, Yorùbá immigrants in northern Nigeria were British protected persons and the hosts were subjects. In the post-independence period, the citizenship status was reversed in favor of the host communities who were regarded as indigenes and migrants as non-indigenes or settlers. But pay attention to what I'm about to read. this is actually what defied what the British were trying to do at the time. The attempt by the British to segregate the Yoruba from the indigenes failed in Kano and Zaria due to historical relationships that had existed between them before the British conquest. In Kano, despite restrictions, the Yoruba Muslims continued to live within the native reservation area, Kano Old City, while some Hausa lived in Sabongeri. I think it's clear now. We got it, Abi. Okay, what that means basically is that Oyibo wanted to create division by saying, this was between 1911 and 1913, create Sabongeri, and everybody that comes into the north, say Yoruba people for instance, we're going to call them British protected persons, and they will be settled in the Sabongeri. But they could not do it between Yoruba people and Hausa people. And it was because of the pre-colonial relationship between them. They were already living together. All right? So you couldn't create that division. That's what they're trying to say here, particularly in Kano and in Zaria. In the places where Hausa people,
when you were supposed to have the settlers, you now had Hausa people still living there. For the Yoruba and Hausa, the colonial segregation was ineffective due to historical relations that had existed between the two groups for no less than 500 years before British rule. So that would be around 14th century. Okay? British got here in the 1800s, right? And then they began to, Royal Niger Company, all of those Lagos, bombing and everything was 19th century. And then 19th century. Yeah, 1800s. And then by the beginning of 20th century, 1900, Nigeria then was transferred from the Royal Niger Company to the British government, and the Uganda arrived. So all of that to say that 5 centuries before British, at least 5 centuries, let me not even say 5 centuries, at least 5 centuries, Yoruba and Hausa people have had relationship. The idea of segregation was in some ways resisted by the two ethnic groups. For example, the establishment of the townships of Sabongeri created some problems for the British in Zaria. As early as 1915, the British found it difficult to keep out Emirate natives, who were neither employees of the government nor European trading firms in the township area of Sabongeri. Hence, the British resorted to the system of issuing permits to all residents of Sabongeri. 1 second, someone says something about audio. Is it better now?
Is it better? It's TikTok, trust me. But please, thank you very much for alerting me. Oluwatos and Koboko. Is it better now? It's better. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. So let me just read what I read earlier. What was that? For the Yoruba and Hausa, the colonial segregation was ineffective due to historical relations that had existed between the two groups for no less, that means it could be more, than 500 years before British rule. The idea of segregation was in some ways resisted by the two ethnic groups. For example, the establishment of the townships of Sabongeri created some problems for the British in Zaria. As early as 1915, the British found it difficult to keep out Emirate natives who were neither employees of the government nor European trading firms in the township area of Sabongeri. Hence, the British resorted to the system of issuing permits to all residents of Sabongeri. It issued 1,355 permits, 885 to no government and 470 to government residents. In Kano, despite the British insistence, Yoruba Muslims were allowed by the Emir to either live in the native area or in Sabongeri people. By 1937, the population statistics of Kano Township showed that there were 1,093 Hausa residents in Sabongeri as against 1,547 Yoruba. By 1938, there were 2,040 Hausa, that's 26% of the population in Sabongeri, Kano. In 1939, the population of the Hausa and Sabongeri Kaduna was 1,568. Yoruba population was 1,093. So the Sabongeri that was supposed to be for the settlers or for guests became a place where both the owners of the land and Yoruba people were still dwelling. The status of Yoruba clerks employed and protected by the British in North Nigeria depended upon the perpetuation of colonial rule. The host communities felt politically and economically threatened in the public sector, where most of the Yoruba were now employed on contract basis. So please understand that we're looking at two different periods, pre-colonial, colonial. Under British rule, intercommunal relations in Northern Nigeria as elsewhere in the country were enforced within the political and economic framework of colonialism. The British policy of exclusion created a dichotomy between the migrants, who were British protected persons, and the natives, mainly the host community. And then the man wrote something here, a river never loses sight of its source. Identity-based institutions articulated Yoruba diaspora and home ties. During the 1930s depression, the Yoruba in the north organized themselves to fight the exploitation of British rule and as a form of cultural nationalism. There's a document that I think you should read. The origin, I'm trying to remember the title. That's why I'm closing my eyes. The origin of Nigerian nationalism by J.F. Adire. The idea of nationalist movement in Nigeria actually began. Yoruba people Yoruba people also making that same move in the north. The British. So they put their own things to be fighting those community, but it is well. Go back to this. Where were we? During the 1930s depression, the Yoruba in the north organized themselves to fight the exploitation of British rule and as a form of cultural nationalism. The Yoruba in northern Nigeria articulated their communal goals through different levels of associational civil life of an ethnic, religious, township, and occupational nature. L. Trege argues that the hometown association served as a source of social and cultural identity among the Yoruba in the diaspora. She demonstrated the propensity of Yoruba groups to migrate and settle in other communities while maintaining ties with their homeland. Evidence from our study of the Ijesha Yoruba shows that at the individual level, migration was combined with the maintenance of ties to family, kin networks, and community in terms of remittances, ceremonies, and visits. This network served as mechanism of managing threats and insecurity. Members drew on emotional resources, including friendship and family visits, to strengthen ethnic bond. For example, in 1942, the Yoruba Central Welfare Association, Kano Egbemodudua, was founded. It was the creative ingenuity of diaspora members to establish communal and ethnic associations rooted in their own culture. Chief D.O. Sonyaolu offered the association a plot of land where Odudua Hall, Kano, was built. But after his death in 1960, the ownership of the land and the building was disputed between his family and the Yoruba community. It should be noted that the Egbemodudua in Kano preceded the one founded by Chief Awolowo in London, Lagos, and Ile-Ife between 1945 and 1948. By 1948, however, Awolowo's Egbemodudua became popularly accepted among the Yoruba in northern Nigeria. For example, the Sokoto branch was formed on 4th January 1948, and the Bukuru branch was inaugurated on 20th January 1948. Prominent Yoruba merchants in northern Nigeria played active roles in the activities of Egbemodudua. In July 1951, Chief D.O. Sonyaolu was part of the delegation of Egbemodudua led by Chief Awolowo to discuss the various problems of Yoruba in the north with the Northern Chief Commissioner in Kaduna. Chief Sonyaolu was one of the 8 vice presidents of Egbemodudua between 1954 and 1956. Now, we're about to go into Egbemodudua, and it will take us away from this, but I think it will also help us. And then from here, we'll talk about how we lived in the north, the activities of traveling theater. It's becoming like a proper university conversation, but I hope we'll be able to. I think I'm trying. I'm also trying to make sure that we're, situating it within our present, context, right? But we will tomorrow, we're going to come from here tomorrow, we'll talk about how the traveling theatre, Alarijo, particularly Hubert Ogunde, Baba Ogunde, how they moved in the north, how they gained acceptance in the north, and how the relationship between us and the Hausa made, Northerners generally, made movements of Yoruba people moving into the north for entertainment purposes work. All right, we'll talk about all of those things tomorrow. Then we'll also talk about some of our people who were living there, what they experienced, and what Hausa people also experienced in Yoruba land. Let me say this before we close. None of this conversation is meant to create this impression that we had a perfect relationship with the Hausa people. Like we're just brothers and we're from the heavens together, everything was fine. We fought. We had disagreements, there were communal clashes, whether in the north, in the north and in the west. There were communal clashes. You remember the one that happened in Shagam. There were communal clashes in the north. Interestingly, the one that happened in the southwest, and I'll end with this, we'll continue from here tomorrow. So some Hausa people got in trouble. They quarreled with the Yoruba host. And man, it was bad. It was terrible, the crisis. So these guys now went back to the north. And when they went to meet the king told them that essentially you're going to have to sort it out. Like, you're not going to have retaliations because you guys have to settle the matter. The way it was settled, it was so beautiful. We'll talk about it tomorrow. I don't want to go into it today. It was so beautiful that you understand the fact that at the end of the day, what makes relationship beautiful, whether it's inter-ethnic, international, or even interpersonal, is not the absence of conflict. It's actually the ability to resolve that conflict. The conflict resolution mechanism is actually what makes relationship a lot better or stronger, not the absence of conflict. Okay? And I say that to say that I appreciate our relationship with them, as they appreciate the relationship with us. In the document that I have here, when we come to, maybe tomorrow, we'll be able to get there, where their own politicians began to talk to Yoruba people. You can get involved in this. You can be part of this. There's the same thing has happened in Yoruba land, by the way. You've had Northerners in some political spaces in Yoruba land as well. There was a case where a governor was talking to some Yoruba people and they're saying that they're Yoruba people. Like, you're not Yoruba people. You're not Yoruba. How can you call yourself Yoruba? You've been here for Kenneth, you are here. You're one of us. That is where we have to get to when we're having conversations, so that you don't have clowns telling people that they want to become indigenous in other people's lands and that they want to wipe off the indigenous, and that's their way of perpetuating themselves according to Darwinism and the idea of natural selection. If you were here when I discussed that video, you probably understand what I'm saying. If not, please let me advertise this video, because I need people to watch it, so you see how retarded some people can be and how a person can be dangerously self-destructive. I mean, to be self-destructive is dangerous enough, but some people can even now be dangerously self-destructive. The title of that video you should watch on our YouTube channel is Uncovering the Igbo Nazi Agenda and the Nazi Logic of Modern Igbo Expansionists. It is not a video or a conversation against Igbo people. It's a conversation against the idea of Ehrenfolk and Lebensraum, which are core principles of Nazi ideology. And so I don't like talking about people. Oh, this person, no. But if their ideologies, their worldviews, their cultural expressions that are inimical to the well-being of Yoruba people, we've got to speak about it. Shouting one Nigeria will not change the fact that this kind of statements about wiping out indigenous people is insanity. All right? And we've got to push back. But I'm using this particular conversation to also explain that it's not that there is a problem with having others in our spaces. Long before Nigeria became Nigeria, we're having others. We created cities. I'm going to find you that article that I mentioned earlier. It's somewhere on the other device that talks about the number. I feel like I have to find it. That talks about the number of cities they found in Yoruba land. To have such cities, to have such urban centers in your part of the country means that you definitely must have attracted people from different ethnicities. Which is why I say this. I say it as humbly as I can. There's nobody in this country, there's nobody on the continent of Africa that can tell Yoruba people how to be cosmopolitan or how to be welcoming or how to create spaces for non-Yoruba people. Nobody. There's no ethnicity. There's no group. There's no person. And it's not because of Guinea, it's because we have done it. They have benefited from it. Their job is to replicate that where they come from, not to teach us about what we have been doing before they even saw the light of day. That's if they are awake. Anyway, I'll find you that document by tomorrow. I'll read it to you. Tells you, you know, how you build urban centers. So we are loving people, good people, great nation, hospitable, come and stay. But there's some things you will say that people will be asking you, what do you want? Hospitality or hospital? Thank you very much for listening to this. Let me read some of the comments, and then if you want to come up, I'll probably bring one or two people. But let me read some comments on YouTube. I hope you had a great time. I hope you enjoyed we had a class today. We've not had that in a while. And I wanted to try to make sure that we still stayed within the new time we're using. So that's cool. A few comments here. YouTube, we have Intel. People can be that bold. There was a story of an American who was employed. Okay, I think I was talking about the other news. So let's move away from the news. I want to get to the topic so I can go. Yes, SB0074 on YouTube says, just like the Oshodis in Lagos were originally tapas. Yes. Oshodi Takpa. What's that man's name? His last something. Because I know. He moved to Yoruba land and would have been sold as a slave. One of the things I like, and I was having a conversation with some people earlier today about the beauty of Yoruba land. Listen, there's no perfect society, not even mine. And I say it often because once you begin to think that you have arrived, you begin to atrophy, you plateau, and then you become like Odo Adagun. Mama needs to be stinking. So you have to also look at people who are doing better. So there's no perfect society. However, Ladunji, that's the name. I hope I got that right. I was going to say, however, one of the beautiful things about Yoruba people and Yoruba culture is the possibility of social mobility. In other words, you can come in as the least person in society. You have a chance to move up the social ladder. So that was the gentleman, I think was a gentleman, referred to. He got into the palace of the Oba Oshinokun, his household. And he rose through the ranks and began to work with the king himself, became a chief, worked with Oba Kosoko, moved to Ekpet together, returned and settled in Ekpet. Very fantastic story. I mean, we're not talking about everything that he did. Also participated in the bombardment of Lagos. He fought against the Royal British Navy. Okay, he was on the Lagos side. That's why I often say this, and I want to say it. And I want to use this point as the launchpad into this conversation. When the Lagos in 1851, was on the side of Lagos against the British. Oh boy, YouTube, I think YouTube is stalling. 1 second. Okay, good. Oshodi Takpa was on the side of Lagos against the British. Many of the people who are shouting they want to be Lagosians, they want to be Yoruba by force, they want to claim Ife, they want to do anything. If anything strikes, may nothing evil happen in Yoruba land. If anything happens, they are back where they came from. They're not going to fight on your side. They don't care for the land. It means nothing to them as far as care for it is concerned. And that's why there's a particular statement that Achebe made in his book, No Longer at Ease. I think I should read that tomorrow because I'm about to open another book. I don't want to open another book. I'll read that tomorrow. Essentially saying that, listen, if everything is cut or finished, I'll read it. I want to read it verbatim, but no, I don't want to open the book today. I promise tomorrow I'm going to write it down so I can remember. Came up with saying Achebe. But the title of the book is No Longer at Ease. That's why he made the statement. Okay? essentially saying that, listen, if everything is scatter, you leave the place to the owners of the land. The strangers will find their way. It's what you saw in also Abiola in 1993. People return where they come from. But Oshodi Takpa will fight on the side of Lagos against aggressors. Regardless of the outcome, it tells you that that person sees himself as part of the people of the land. That's how you become part of the land, not just by shouting, I have rights. But I don't know, do you need to say this? Do we need to have this conversation in 2026? I guess we do. Anyway, let's do some of the comments here. Someone said, also Abiola in 1993, they all ran back. They returned. You know, when the British arrived, if you left to what we have right now, if you leave it to this ones, they will join the British to destroy Lagos so that they can rebuild. They can have power whenever it's been rebuilt from the ground up. They will join the aggressors. They will help us. They will help them even bombard Lagos. The places where they don't know, they go show. Then go inside Lungus and bomb the places so that they can have some form of proximity to whiteness or to colonialists. That's what would have happened. I hope you notice that all of these things tells you that this is a conversation beyond just, I have friends from this place. I have friends from everywhere and I love them. I can't even explain. I don't like saying I have friends from Guinea. It sounds like I have black friends from a white person. And I'm not saying for that purpose. I'm just saying that I recognize good people everywhere. But that does not change. So the people that always say that I have black friends, they are saying it because they are trying to mask whatever issue they have. I don't have any issue. The point is, when it comes to protecting your space, friendship does not trump self-preservation. It's basic common sense. And we have to be able to understand that as Yoruba people. All right? So thank you very much for that example of Oshodi Takpa. His children are still in Lagos today, and they are Yoruba people. They are not Nupe. They are Yoruba people. But they have, they can trace the ancestry to Nupe. All right. What else do we have here? John Vaughn says, I can relate with these facts because we lived through it. Thank you very much, John Vaughn. Thank you very much. And then thank you for your kind words. Abdul Hakim Classic on Facebook says, they are Fulani and Takpa in Badagry too. The Fulani have been there like 3 generations ago. Absolutely. They're also like that in Kishi, in Ishei, in some parts of Yoruba land. But like I always say, one of the markers you notice is the assimilation of the people into the culture of the land. And we don't just demand this, it's also what we do when we go to other people's places. Like we read, it's what Yoruba did in Kaduna, in Kano, so that even the emir was like they should stay amongst the people rather than go to Sabongeri, where the British was creating for the purpose of segregation. We can have that in Nigeria, okay? But we don't have to rewrite the history and say we are all one. It doesn't have to be, we are still not one. But at least we can respect ourselves. And then you can thrive in Yoruba land. You can succeed and do well. But you will not get an inch of anything called Yoruba land. I mean, let's make it very clear. This idea that I've bought land, I've bought Kenneth, number one, you've not bought anything. Most of the land that people always shout, but if you put together, you don't even reach half of Dangote refinery. That place is a city. Okay? You just bought 1 quarter plot or half plot somewhere in the Lungu. We thank you for your purchase. But understand the fact that in Nigeria, what you have when you call the C of O is not certificate of ownership, it's certificate of occupancy. The maximum, not minimum, the maximum number of years you can, occupy that space is 99. Maximum, not minimum. In other words, it can be revoked. May God give all of us understanding, and may people have sense in this country called Nigeria. We will continue this tomorrow, discussing Yoruba relationship with the North. I hope this has helped us understand a bit more about complexities of Nigeria. Now, I'll mention some of these things tomorrow, how you have a lot of policemen in the North, second only to the Hausa themselves, over 200 of them. And you don't see Yoruba people going there to say, we own the place. Okay? It's a sign of cultural evolution. Thank you very much for being part of today's session. Quick announcement before we go. We are still, 1 second, let me show you something. We changed something in our design because of the feedback we got. So now you don't have to go to Telegram. You can just go to your browser and type in linktree/Busui Oris. 2 Summit is beginning in September. This is July already, so we have 2 months to go. All right. And want to plan for the conference. It's going to be a series of conferences. We'll be holding it every month in different spaces. What it is a time where people can learn. We discuss some of these conversations we're having right now. We have the conversation, but rather than just stay online, we are meeting people. I'll also show you the link address. We're meeting people where they are in campuses and cities across all over the place. We're able to teach and also get feedback and also learn from others. What creates spaces we can have such conversations once a month. Go from place to place. We will have Redomi Republic. The idea basically is you ask questions about Yoruba culture, Yoruba history, Nigerian politics, innovation, and things like that. And then you get to win money. You get to double your money, you make more money, and then you win the money, and then we all laugh and live happily ever after. Now, here's the point. A very good way to teach history and identity is using games. You know, our fathers decoded that a long time ago. That's why they have Allah Akbar at Allah Akbar. It lets the story stick. It lets you remember. You have it in your Oriki. That's why you sing it. It's fun. So we believe that using games will help us to reach the younger people and even the older ones as well. And so when we do that, we then put out the recordings on our social media platforms. So that's what Redomi Global is about. Redomi Global or the masterclass. I'm going to be saying this almost every day so we can get people to support, because we really need all the support we can get. All right. But in order to get this done, we're going to need you to help us with this. We want you to join the movement. You can give, you can volunteer, you can host, and you can sponsor. To give means that you want to support what we're about to do. It's going to require a lot of money to do this. We really need you to support it. We've been having this conversation for about 2 years. A lot of people have been supporting us here, and we really appreciate everything you've done for us. But we need to scale this, and we want you to support so that we have this event. So if you want to give towards it, please feel free. I'll tell you how to do that later. You can also volunteer. That means basically that maybe you can do media, or you can do events management, or you can do music, or you can do whatever you can do to make the events successful. That's volunteering. Then you can host. To host means that you probably have a venue, or you are a member of an association or an organization, and you want us to work together to have the event in your place, so you are hosting essentially. And the last one is sponsor. To sponsor means that you have a business, you have a brand, and you want us to talk about it and put it out there. So when the videos are going out, the videos are going out with your brand, with your message. That's what sponsorship is about. Now, the first 3, if you go to linktree/Busui Oris, you'll find forms, right? You see give to submit, volunteer to submit, host to submit. It's just a short form. Please click the link, and then whatever one you're interested in, you can be interested in the 3 or 1 or 2, to give, to volunteer, or to host. Click, fill the form, and we shall get back to you. And if you're giving, the details are also there in the form. All right. I'll talk more about this as time goes on, but we're going to make this happen together. Thank you very much for listening. All right. It's been a fantastic session today. I will, be calling it a day. We will be calling it a day together now. But before we go, we're going to listen to Nigerian anthem and then Yoruba anthem. If you're joining us for the first time, let me welcome you. You are welcome in the name of the Lord. We have the sessions every weekday, Mondays to Fridays, 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time. So please join us 4 p.m. tomorrow, and we'll have a great time together. But before we go today, we're going to listen to our anthems, the Nigerian anthem and the Yoruba anthem. God bless Nigeria. wá ní ìmọ́lẹ̀ ògo adúláwọ̀ ìmọ́lẹ̀ wọ̀ ní wọ́kùn lágbára Ọlọ́run. Ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ò ní bàjẹ́, Nàìjíríà náà ò ní bàjẹ́, ilé wa ọ̀nà wa ò ní dàrú. Gbọ̀ngàn tábàdá wálé á máa yọrí sí ìròyìn lágbára Ọlọ́run. Thank you very much for being part of this session. May God bless and keep you and your family. May Nigeria work. May Yoruba land prosper. Thanks a lot. I want to thank everybody who gave gifts, who power tapped, who liked, who commented, who shared. Thank you very much for making the session a success. We'll see you again tomorrow at 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time. Do have a lovely, lovely evening. Odaro, Esho.